Look at us now, tip to
Ooh, Jesus.
Shout out to Morning Kombat.
Do you want a margarita? Yes! My God!
it's us doing what we love. But it's time to bang. Oh, yeah. You feeling what I'm feeling? Friday, November 15th, 2024. You ain't got shit to do but to sit here and get face effed by the best damn combat sports show, period. And what a wild weekend to be hosting Morning Kombat. It's Mike Tyson tonight, Jon Jones tomorrow. Stipe is going to get out of the wheelchair and fight again. What a time. I'm Brian Campbell, BC, with that BDE. They call me the alpha around here, but only among Americans, apparently. That man next to me is Luke Thomas, DC's finest. Luke, how the hell are you? I want to go on record and say, I'm not complaining. One of the busiest work fight weeks I've had in a long ass time, working noon to night, all around the clock. How are you feeling as we get closer to the big ones this week?
I'm feeling okay. I mean, I don't really know what the hell's going to happen tonight, except probably craziness, probably sadness, but there's no one talking about it. Serrano Taylor 2 is also tonight, so that should be a blast. Like, it's going to be a big weekend. One way or the other, it's going to be a big weekend.
To be fair, nobody's talking at all about what is a really good Latino night card in Riyadh that Golden Boy and Turkey Al Sheikh's putting on tomorrow for free on DAZN. So it's a really big deal, and that one's under the radar completely.
Who is Zurdo Ramirez fighting?
He's fighting Chris Billum Smith in a cruiserweight unification. You got Jose Ramirez against Arnold Barbosa. You got William Zepeda against Tevin Farmer. There's some pretty good matchups up and down on that card, but we won't be talking about it much, Luke, because there's a lot going on. So speaking of a lot going on, we got a lot going on today. We obviously are going to set the stage, preview picks for all things UFC 309, Tyson Paul, not just the Serrano Taylor 2 co-main. How about that Chandler versus Oliveira 2 co-main? And schedule your clocks, 12 Eastern today on this show. On behalf of DraftKings, Showtime Shawn Porter going to join us as we try to make sense of how to bet Tyson Paul and talk about everything else going on under the sun in the world of boxing. We'll have a little bit of fan subs and also dead wrong. So don't forget our email address to reach the show, morningkombat@gmail.com. You can follow us at these social links right here. Follow the show at Morning Kombat. Follow our illustrious YouTube channels, from Luke Thomas to the Brian Campbell Experience to how about that damn main card minute starring Luke Nocita? That's what I'm talking about. Let's bring in Long Island Luke for a quick sec. LIL, how the hell are you? He's the third member of our team.
Sorry, boys. I'm slow today. A little behind the wheel. Just want to say
that happens when you're high.
Yeah, stuff happens. We don't have fan subs today, BC.
We don't?
We're lying to the people. No, I guess we didn't.
I heard we had 2 of them. All right, I guess I lied to the people. Okay.
Maybe
we
I'm
can do
lying
them
to
next
people.
week.
Yeah, just wear a tight T-shirt of ours and take a picture of your wife, and hopefully we won't say anything negative. Sorry, Saul. Sorry about that. All right, yeah. LIL, are you fired up for this weekend or not? Not at all.
Yeah, not so much tonight. I mean, I will be doing a watch along tonight, but tomorrow I'm definitely fired up. Not the best card top to bottom, but we were talking earlier, like my boy Weidman's fighting. Shout out Long Island. Got to be repping him. So I'm looking forward to it.
Chris Weidman is still your boy, indeed, no doubt about it. Thank you very much. Main card minute going to hit you hard this weekend too. Luke, anything you want to talk about personal going on? Have you been manscaping? Anything new in your life?
I don't know if I've been manscaping recently. No, just you know what? How about this, BC? You're the painter of the two of us, right? I think it's a fair way to put it.
I'm an artistic soul. Yeah.
Tukey painted me something yesterday, and I think it's hearts and then vegetation and then some other stuff. Give me, hey, be gentle.
Yes.
Be gentle. But this is what Tukey painted me. What do you think?
Oh, look at Tukes getting out there and getting creative. I love that. Did you say there was vegetation like marijuana leaves or no?
No, I don't think so. I think this is supposed to be a tree. These are bushes. 3 hearts, and I think that's supposed to be a lollipop, but I
That
don't
is
know.
so beautiful. I love when the
Yeah.
kids do stuff like that. Shout out to Tukes, but it would have been awesome if you know, you were like, Tukes, what is this green thing? And she's like, you know, cannabis, Dad. You know, you all right? I learned it by watching you. Okay, there you go.
That thing you smell like when you come out of your own bathroom. Oh,
Yes.
oh, that thing. Okay,
Yes.
yes. Mhm.
Luke, will you have around the clock programming on the Luke Thomas YouTube channel this weekend?
Yeah, we're gonna. I mean, I don't know what the hell's gonna happen tonight, but we're gonna watch it together. Whoever wants to join me, you can do that. I'm gonna skip the first fight on the card. I'm gonna tune in, dude. Isn't that what I'm talking about? Like Tyson Paul is obviously what no one else can talk about anything else, to the point where even Katie Taylor and Serrano is being overlooked. Mario Barrios is on this card
Sure.
as well. Like holy crap, like that.
Bruce
And
Carrington, baby. Shoo.
Shoes on the card. So like there's actually some like legit things on this card, and then the main event is just the weirdest thing we've ever seen. So yeah, we'll be doing that tonight. And then of course 309. We'll start at co-main, main, and then we'll transition into a post-fight show.
We're going to talk about the slap heard around the world when Jake Paul stepped on Mike Tyson's shoeless toes yesterday. But we've got a lot to get into about UFC 309. And just a second reminder, Shawn Porter later in the show. But let's get right into it. Let's dive in. It is UFC 309 this Saturday. MSG NYC. It matters, or at least it used to. But to the credit of the UFC, as much as like we've maligned or groaned at the idea of Jon versus Stipe a year later, we're getting a lot of mileage in the headlines over it, only not for the actual fight. Our first topic surrounds Jon Jones's very busy and wild week back in the media cycle. Just his second fight in 5 years, and from a lengthy sit down at Media Day on Wednesday, where Jon defended himself at length over all things Tom Aspinall and beyond. But I couldn't help but notice his story changing a lot minute to minute, through him walking off an interview, through what we saw in last night's press conference. Luke, I want to set you up like this. Is Jon Jones a GOAT? Yes. He's been acting a little bit like a duck too. Some think he's been acting a little bit like a biatch with respect to the greatest fighter we've ever seen as well. How would you sum up what we learned from Jon Jones this week?
Well, he did weigh in. He looked pretty great on the scales. I think all things being what they are, I think he weighed in approximately 237. Long Island Luke, if I got that wrong, by all means chime in. I think right around that mark, 237 and a half. So he looked pretty good. I think in general, it's not all that dissimilar from the Jon Jones that we've come to know over the years. The thing that stands out to me, BC, is that I feel like he walked into fight week kind of under the assumption that he was going to be treated as like,
yes,
you ever seen like guys who go like soldiers, Marines, whoever, they go deploy overseas, and then when they come back home, they're like received as, you know, heroes or whatever. I think he felt like he was going to walk into fight week and be treated like that. And it didn't quite go exactly like that. Now, I want to be clear, Jon's still very popular. There are a huge amount of people who still want to see him fight. There's a giant fan base who, of course, likes him. Like, none of that is in any way wrong, or I'm trying to challenge it. But he tried to define this narrative about what was going to happen after this, and to try and like really put it out in the media. And I know some folks think he's doing that because he has all the intentions in the world of taking a Tom Aspinall fight, and it's to drive up the price. I really don't buy that. I think that obviously there is some level of public jockeying, but the way in which he has gone about it, and then refusing to sit down with Adam Catterall and all those things that were caught on camera, it's all kind of served to kind of like backfire a little bit. It's made the Aspinall fight very high value, and to the point where Aspinall was getting, who wasn't even in attendance at the post-fight press, or excuse me, the pre-fight press conference yesterday.
Wasn't allowed.
He wasn't allowed, but the audience was chanting "Tommy, Tommy." It was kind of remarkable.
How about that pop? I mean, I was at the UFC 205 press conference when Conor came in late with the fur coat, and he was ragging on Eddie, and it was so loud you could not hear yourself ask a question. Have you heard an ovation at a presser as loud as what the fans gave Tom Aspinall when Dana came to the podium and said, no matter what, the winner of Jones Aspinall is expected to fight, or Stipe is expected to fight Aspinall next? Dude, the crowd went sick. They
went bananas. They went bananas because I've tried to make this point. It's not just important for the division. And again, Jon can retire, and he can call it a career, and that's his right. And of course, he has a right to seek out whatever fights he wants. But the problem is The fight against Aspinall is important for the heavyweight division. It's important for the title. We've made this argument a million times. But BC, it's just a better fight. It's a more competitive fight. I looked this up. In certain places, now, of course, this could all change between now and whenever, but in certain places, Jon is more favored to beat Poatan than he is Stipe, and he's in certain places a minus 700 favorite against Stipe.
Damn.
By contrast, in certain places, Aspinall is now favored to beat Jon. Now, I don't know if that's actually a fair recitation of, or a fair examination of what would happen or a prelude to it. I think it's a 50-50 fight, but I think it's dawning on people that it is a 50-50 fight, that it is a big fight, that it would sell, that people do want to see it, and it would be interesting. All those things kind of matter, and it just made this fight week. Dude, where has Stipe been? Where has he been? There's been no conversation about him.
No, I hear you. I hear you. Look, I think you nailed something that I fully agree with. It's as if Jon entered this fight week in this return to the media cycle. And remember, he's been very reclusive the last 5 years outside of coming back for Cyril Gane. You'll see him in the past post, social media videos, and we'll talk about it, but you're not seeing him out there on the regular giving lengthy interviews. And we got that this week. He just looked unprepared that the Aspinall topic would have this much legs to it. He seemed unprepared. I don't know, maybe what you're saying, that anyone would do anything but what Dana has done, which is overly fillet him, prop up his ego, be like, here comes the pound for pound number one, the GOAT. I mean, they introduced him at the press conference as the pound for pound number one best fighter in the world, even though the UFC actual rankings don't show that. So it's as if from the weird thing with Stipe over the use of the word bitch through, him refusing to shake hands after the press conference, which may have just been Jon trying to pick up on a grudge, Michael Jordan last stand style, and just hold on it. But it seemed like Jones was so unprepared for what could happen that I think that's why he had been changing the narrative so regularly, almost desperately. And what do I mean by that? That lengthy chat he gave on Wednesday, if you recall, it started with him reviewing the bullet points of why Tom is just not a big enough name to warrant his time. He said, look, if we're in the same business setting, Tom would never even have FaceTime with me because that's where I am and where he's at. But the more Jon gave reasons or excuses, it became so easy to pick it apart. He's like, everybody just wants to see me finally be competitive against somebody after 16 years. It's like, Jon, you kind of ran out in the 205 division in 2020 after back-to-back very competitive fights with Maheta and Reyes. Then you sat out 3 years in Ngannou's prime. Then you come back after Ngannou leaves. And for all the talk he says about if I beat Aspinall, it's going to be just like when I beat Gane, where everybody said coming in that Gane was this killer. They weren't saying that, Jon. Gane had lost to a one-legged Francis Ngannou, and then he went into a fight. He was a monster favorite against Tuivasa, and he was kind of lucky to get out of there in an absolute war. So I felt Jon was almost like so far behind the eight ball of like thinking that anyone might fact check him or counter him that I don't know if you heard this, Luke, on Wednesday. He went from Tom's not on my level, we're not going to do this, to, oh, maybe I was wrong. Tom is deserving of this, but I would just really prefer Poatan, and it's either Alex Pereira or I retire. But then he changed his story again a couple minutes later when he talked to Aaron Bronstetter and talked about, I only want super fights from now on. And suddenly he's bringing up Jamal Hill and Derek Lewis. And then, Luke, on top of that, his final question, Brett Okamoto asked him, and we have footage of it, he changed his tune on Aspinall all over again. Let's listen to Jon responding here to Brett of ESPN.
They see it as like this great challenge. They want to see greatness challenge. Like, does that entice you at all still?
There's a part of it that does, but if I'm being completely honest, I feel like Tom's been such an asshole that I don't want to do business with him. It's just like his fans have been so annoying, but he's just an asshole. He's 30, so he's from this influencer generation where you hop online and the t-shirt sales and all that. I'm past that type of stuff. I'm like, bro, if you had a little bit more respect, then maybe we could have worked something out, but I just don't even want to do business with him. At the end of the day, this is a business, and fighting me gives him an opportunity to change his life forever. And I don't even want to give him the opportunity. Like, he just played his cards wrong with me personally. The press conference, going through the whole shebang with him, I'd rather not do.
So, Luke, what is it? Is he deserving, not deserving? Because Jon said 5 minutes before he said that, he said, I have absolutely nothing against Tom. I wish him the best in his career. And then like a couple minutes later, it's like, no, Tom's an asshole. What is it, Luke?
BC,
Which is it, Jon?
Listen, I know that you have done, I have done my fair share of stupid things, and I know that you probably have as well. And there's probably been a time or two where you got caught red-handed, but you didn't want to admit it. You played like me. You probably did the whole Shaggy bit. It wasn't me over and over again. But you ever try to
got you on camera, Luke? Okay, you know what I mean?
they got me banging on the bathroom floor, but that wasn't me. But you, in all seriousness, if you get caught in a lie, for example, and then you really try to defend it, and then you can't do it, and you're ending up saying like a series of absurd, nonsensical things. And it comes crashing down because, of course, that's what's happening. Like, you can't defend what happened or your proximity to it or whatever the case may be. So you have to construct a series of other things around it to kind of make sense. But you can bungle that because you haven't thought it through, because it's not real. It didn't actually happen. And it all just looks kind of silly. Like, of course, he's saying silly ass things because what he's actually trying to do. Listen, outside of the cage, Jon makes really bad decisions, right? Like, he has notoriously makes just like the worst decisions almost imaginable sometimes. But inside the cage, and as an athlete, I do think he understands himself very well, and I do think he has very high fight IQ. He makes good decisions there. It's his blessing and his curse. What I mean to say is, in that sense, he is not a dumb guy. And I think he realizes he's probably lost a step, maybe a step or two. And he kind of wants to manage the risk from here on out based on what he's built up and based on what he can actually do right now, which, of course, is not crazy. But there's ways to kind of handle that to mitigate how it's influenced or what kind of influence you can exert. And he went the opposite way. Like, Tom's been an asshole. First of all, there's no evidence that is even remotely fucking true. But beyond that, even if it was, like, what would you call the ascendancy of Conor McGregor? Bowing his head and knee to power? He did the opposite, and that's what shot him. It's the fight game. Being a dick is how you get paid. What are we even talking about here?
Well, look, we have footage of UFC 304,
to the point you made. To the point you raised, he's saying this and it's saying that, he's saying this. He can't keep his story straight because the one true story that he wants to tell, that's the one he's can't tell the public. So he has to just make it up on the fly on all these other things, and that's how we got here.
He talked about, why does everybody want me to face a guy 7 years younger? Hey, Jon, you were 7 years younger than Shogun when that legend gave you a chance, and all those other legends did right after. And then Luke even mentioned being 30 pounds lighter than Aspinall, even though Jon weighed 5 pounds less than Aspinall did in his last fight when Jon weighed in against Cyril. Or 3. I know Jon weighed in lighter for this fight, but it's like, it's maddening. And if you want to say, well, maybe Tom was an asshole, let's go back to July. Here's Tom in the cage at UFC 304.
Hello, Jon. I have nothing against you personally, but I just think I'm better than you. I just know that I can beat you in a fight. So I'm coming for it.
I mean, what the water, weed, dude.
BC, do you remember at the height of the Jones DC battling that Jones took to Instagram one time? I actually have it on my phone. I found it, where on Instagram he put up a post, and the caption of the post was, DC, I could slap your wife on the ass and there's nothing you could do about it.
Oh shit.
Like, it's like, what the fuck are we even talking about?
Don't talk about Jon's kids if that's what you're about to do.
And the best part is, I actually found Miocic's comments about that. He didn't. What he said is, my kids are not going to look up to me in any kind of messed up way. He never mentioned Jon's children as such. I mean, it's just all completely phony. Like, it's totally nonsensical, irrelevant, misleading, gaslighting bullshit is the end of the story. He wants to mitigate risk, which is not a crazy thing, but he's trapped in a position where it's not really a thing that's going to be super available to him, and he doesn't know how to wiggle his way out of it. That's where we're at.
I know he's still with the Fixer, that lady, Luke, that was around him at UFC 200. I just wish they had some PR plan entering this week, because everyone thinks, oh, you and Luke want to just keep dunking on Jon. You hate him. Oh, this goes back to Luke at UFC 214 press conference, even though I think, didn't Jon jump on your Instagram this week and kind of come after you again?
Yeah, he called me a nerd. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, that's not actually it. We just want Jon to like tell the truth or his truth and not constantly be talking in such unnecessary circles. That's not what a GOAT does, right? Like Luke, I've said this and I mean it. If he just came out and said, look, I'm not talking about any other fighters. Let's get through Stipe and we'll talk about it on Saturday night. We probably would stop talking about it. But it's Jon that did a disservice to himself, his own, legacy or image or whatever, by kind of stepping in all these puddles that he created for himself. So here's after this media sit down where he had a scheduled interview with Adam Catterall of TNT Sports. And I know people are saying, well, should we bring up Aspinall every question when Jones is fighting Stipe? Yeah, when Jones is answering the questions the way he is, and other people say, well, isn't Catterall boys with Aspinall? He might be. But if we're going to rail on Rousey for handpicking the interviews she does and not wanting to talk to anybody with Ramona Shelburne, you got to keep that same energy. Here's what we talked about with Jon.
What's up, guys? How we doing?
Doing well.
Okay.
Good.
How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right.
Good, man. Good. Have a seat, sir.
All you guys in, but
Hey, I'm not going to do this interview. You don't want to do it? No, because it's going to be an Aspinall Fest. I'm not doing it. Come on, let's go.
hey, bro, nothing personal. I see how close you guys are, and common sense tells me what type of questions I'm just going to get asked. So I'm just like, give it time to speak to who you want to speak to. Thank you.
May I on this one? Just
Yes.
a little bit. Two things I would say to that. First of all, if Jon doesn't want to do that interview, that's okay. Like, he doesn't have to do it. Now, you can kill him for the reasons about why he doesn't want it. But I said this after he dunked on me, and then this particular thing. Like, if any fighter, if they don't want to talk to you, like, they don't owe me or Adam or anybody else shit. Like, it doesn't work that way. If he doesn't want to, fine, that's his right. You can examine the reasons for why he doesn't want to do it. But like, ultimately, he didn't want to do it. Okay. It's just obviously like the Aspinall thing has, I think, backfired a little bit in terms of how he wanted this week to go, and it's taking up more bandwidth than he wants to give it, and he doesn't want to give it anymore. But I would say it's taking up so much bandwidth by virtue to the point you raised, BC, about how he's handled it. Rather than saying, we'll see what the future holds. I haven't made any decisions yet, right? In a way to kind of, leave your options open. He went hardcore towards the Poetan thing, and there was no traction for it. And now that just made the Aspinall situation like magnified times a billion. The second point I'd raise is, I know some folks are new to the sport and they've probably only ever seen the clip of Jon dunking on me and they don't know the context. Guys, anybody who was around long enough, what you may not appreciate about that clip and then the years before that is that I was accused year after year after year not of being a Jon Jones hater, the exact opposite, of carrying water for him, of being far too forgiving of him, of giving way too much positive spin on anything he was doing. And you can decide whether or not, if you want to review anything I did or said or wrote at that time, whether that's true. But that was the context. And in fact, after he did this, I can assure you that his coaches expressed great surprise at Jon's reaction, and they were extremely apologetic to me in person because they had no idea where it was coming from. Moreover, BC, in the years following that, nobody ever accused me of being unfair to Jon at any point following that. It is only this situation, because I finally been like, this is so nakedly absurd, where I finally have genuine criticisms of the situation. And the best people can do after all this time this guy has been in the UFC, and after year being criticized of being too favorable to him, they can't reconcile with the truth. They can't reconcile with the argument. So they have to manufacture that, oh, this must be some kind of personal animus. Guys, there's lots of fighters I don't like, and you'd never know it. You'd never, ever.
Well, I know it because we try to schedule interviews with them, and you're like, hell no.
Well, that could just be because they're boring to talk to. But the point I'm trying to make also, BC, is this. And you understand this, BC. Like, it is so obvious what is happening here. And if the best that people can come up with is trying to insert personal animus, despite a record of coverage of this guy that has been not perfect, like no one's coverage is, but in general, more than fair, especially during the most tumultuous periods of his career, I'm sorry, I just don't take it seriously, and I don't think anybody who understands what the full truth is ever could.
Right. And I get the people saying, like, again, maybe your media should stop bringing it up or whatever. There's ways he could have handled that. And I also get people saying, look, he's the GOAT. Shouldn't he get some level of elevated treatment or more grace put on him? I'm going to argue that he already does by the UFC. I think this Jon Jones is #1 pound for pound campaign from Dana was exclusively about keeping Jon happy for future business opportunities. Remember, they moved a card for him during Christmas week from one state to another when he had that USADA hiccup ahead of the second Gustafsson fight. And Luke, we'll get to the glove change in a few minutes. Could you even connect the dots that Jon's complaints may have led to that? They didn't allow Tom Aspinall to go to the press conference. He told DC on today's UFC weigh-in show, Aspinall did, that he's also requested to be able to go, in the cage afterwards, and they haven't given him an answer yet. I feel like they have been catering to Jon's ego at every turn. It's just that he's creating all these landmines. Here's another landmine. I referenced it earlier. Here's the chat with him and Bronstetter after that media day, where Jon just went against everything he said a few minutes earlier once again.
Yeah, I could see myself. I could see myself after this entertaining super fights only. After this fight, if we get a dominant performance, I'm prepared to vacate the heavyweight championship and fight for fun. I want to fight for fun. I've had a big chip on my shoulder my whole career of having to defend. And I don't necessarily want it to be over, but I just want to fight for fun. I think about one of my teammates, Donald Cowboy Cerrone. He just fights. Win, lose, or draw, he just fights. And I would love to kind of experience that for the first time in my career, of just being like, not having this belt to try to protect, but just fighting guys that I stylistically want to fight against. Just random fights, Jamal Hill, me and him meet up at 220 and see what happens. That'd be interesting to see. Let's just see what happens, Or I'm at an interesting weight where I can fight light heavyweights or heavyweights. Derek Lewis, the biggest knockout puncher in history. I'm just throwing out random names, but I'm at a body weight right now where I could do just fun fights. And that's what I want to do. I want to do fun fights for me, not necessarily for the fans, but for me. And, let's see if Dana allows me to do that or not.
Look, if that was his stance, I wouldn't crap on it. But how does Jamal Hill and Derek Lewis affect his legacy when that was the reason why he had to fight Poatan next? I'm not going to just, beat this to death, but if you want to think we're being disrespectful for saying he's being more duck than goat, the proof is in the pudding right there. How could you not say 100% this man wants nothing to do with Tom Aspinall? So let's give up that charade. Admit it. You're dropping the belt the next fight. End of story. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how that's even in debate. I get there's people who like him who don't want to face the reality of what is happening. And again, an older fighter wanting to fight for fun is not have we seen that before? Of course. He's just kind of up against it in part, BC, no one's fault per se. Just the UFC doesn't really do soft landings like that unless you're willing to go on an extended win-loss streak and just spend a lot of time well past your prime. The UFC can sometimes obviously accommodate stuff like that, but they're not really all that great at it. It's a hard organization to do that in. And I think the other thing I would say is, BC, again, listen, there is no denying that the amount of incredible achievement he has had and the amount of glory that he has enjoyed and the amount of amazing moments that he has given MMA fans is absurd. It's a huge amount, right? No one could ever say otherwise. And I've seen people try to diminish his 205 resume, which always just drives me nuts. Having lived through his 205 run, it was full of problems like anyone else is. But I've just never seen a guy roll. Dude, he destroyed 205. 205 has never recovered after Jon Jones. I don't think folks really understand that. Other weight classes have kind of reconstituted. Jon Jones made 205 unrecognizable. Not even Khabib could do that at 155. And I know there's lots of arguments about why there's differences, but please, I don't even buy that. But what I would also say is, and that this is just a reality, I have seen how many times he has fucked up things and he has made life difficult for the UFC, for fans, for coaches, for everyone else. Dude, UFC 200 is one among many examples I could pick. The idea that he could just waltz into fight week this time around and be like, oh, yeah, I just want to have fun fights. It's I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's some appetite for that, but like, you know, there's also a lot of people who've like this idea that like he's just entitled to it because it's the end of his career. You're entitled to what you can reasonably produce. And he's just in a really tough place for that. And I think also having a little bit of humility about all the difficulty that he's caused is probably prudent here, but also not visible.
I mean, you said there's no soft landings in the UFC, and normally you're right, except for this soft landing. I'm not saying they can't win. I'm not saying he's not dangerous. They let him wait a year and still allowed him to fight Stipe, who hasn't fought in 4 years, hasn't won a fight in 5, basically, or whatever the math is. It's just wild. So he said, if Dana allows him, we told you what Dana said at the press conference last night. Here's Dana on Jim Rome. This is the first time we heard that it seems the UFC is putting their foot down.
Jon Jones. You know, Jon will do what he does on Saturday. If he wins, you know, like I said, he'll disappear for a while. And then that, you know, the competitive spirit will start bubbling up again. And then money will talk. And if he doesn't decide to retire, he absolutely, positively fights Aspinall.
Not Pereira.
Yeah, he's not fighting Pereira.
That's what he's asking for. Obviously, he wants that BMF belt. So you tell me either you retire. Is this what it comes down to, Dana? He retires or he fights Aspinall?
Aspinall was a middleweight that moved up to light heavyweight. Okay, he's also a kickboxer who has done very, very well in MMA. His wrestling isn't even near the level of Jon Jones, and Jon Jones is way bigger than him. If Jon Jones wants to fight again after Saturday night, he will fight Tom Aspinall.
Dana White joining us. Appreciate that, Dana. The other main co-fight you've got is Michael Chandler.
That's pretty straightforward from the boss. Respect, okay?
He's completely, totally. He said it. He said Aspinall's a middleweight who moved up. He obviously meant Poatan, but like, yeah, Dana's. I've got my differences with Dana. He's right on the money. Also, can you just imagine some of the chaos it might cause if something goes wrong with Poatan, if Jones wrecks him, and then now he's, you know, he can't get back out there for all the way. Ankalaev is also owed a fight. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to accuse Poatan of ducking just yet, but Poatan's like, bro, I mean, Ankalaev is a bit of a donk. We all know that, but you got work to do. Like, that's what having a belt means. You got to defend against that guy. Come on, fellas.
Indeed. Let's go to topic number 2, which is the actual fight itself. Saturday night, UFC 309, pay-per-view main event. The greatest heavyweight of all time against the greatest fighter of all time. And the odds via DraftKings have Jones at -625. Stipe Miocic, who hasn't fought since that one-sided knockout loss to Francis Ngannou, +455. So, Luke, Stipe is in this weird spot where he's still a dangerous fighter. He told me this week on the BCX he can walk just fine despite our fears of him. How much has he been able, do you think, benefit from all the Aspinall talk, and how ridiculously under the radar, which is his style, but it's even more than ever before, that he's almost being completely counted out in this fight? How competitive do you expect this fight to be?
I think it could be competitive early. I don't necessarily foresee a situation. Okay, when I say I don't foresee, people often sometimes think what I'm saying is that won't happen. Everything is a function of probability. Everything is a function of likelihood. Many things could happen in a fight, including things, of course, you never see coming. One of the more likely scenarios, I guess is the way I should put it, BC, is, you know, Stipe kind of collapsing early. Of course, we don't know about his chin. He is old. His last time he got his shit rocked, granted it was by Francis Ngannou. Okay, he does a lot of rocking with his fists, but nevertheless, it wasn't just a great showing for him. And so there's just a lot of questions. I do think, to the point that you raised, the time off, I think, could be beneficial for a couple of reasons. Now, of course, he's gotten a lot older, but he didn't get beat up a lot during that time, relatively speaking, versus an active schedule. So there's that. Second of all, when you have time off, you can actually work a little bit on skill development. That's going to be up against the fact that he's 40 years old. But if they've got a really good game plan and they've really, really rehearsed it and they've really kind of gotten the nuts and bolts down, that could prove very, very disruptive for, he could overperform relative to expectations. And of course, if he's got any kind of long-standing injury that maybe needed some real time off to heal, that could improve as well. So, he's coming in here, BC, with, I mentioned it, no one's talking about Stipe, and it's freaking fight week. It's just Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall. Here comes Stipe under the radar. That said, BC, again, Jon is just an extremely poor decision maker outside of the cage, but inside the cage, he's very, very, very good. There's no denying he has probably done an extensive amount of homework, because he always does. Yes. At least more recently, he always does anyway, I should say. There's a lot of times he didn't early in his career, but more recently he has. And I suspect that he's got, they've looked at as much tape as possible. So what you're actually having to bank on is, did he get healthier in his time off? Did he come up with a great game plan in his time off? And did he get better overall with his skills to at least some extent during his time off? And what advantages do those confer?
Yeah, a lot of people are saying, hey, can we stop talking about Aspinall? You're being disrespectful to everyone. I talked with Chris Weidman this week, who believes the person being most disrespected is who you might guess here, his friend Stipe Miocic. Let's listen in. Well, speaking of the media and how we can be in the narratives we make, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know if we're right or wrong, but we've been all over Jon Jones this week for, I guess, dismissing Tom Aspinall and wanting to sort of pick off the menu in the ways he defends his title. Do you have an opinion on that? Has Jon accomplished enough where we should shut the hell up and let him do whatever he wants?
Honestly, I feel like you guys should be talking about Stipe Miocic more than you guys are talking about Tom Aspinall. I feel like there's a lot of overlooking Stipe in this fight, and Stipe gets a win on Saturday night. It's like, it's not even really that's not even a talking point anymore. And I feel like Stipe's being disrespected a lot right now. Yeah, that's probably my first thought. And the Aspinall thing, I don't know. Jones is going to be able to. He does what he wants to do at this point. And Aspinall, I feel bad for Aspinall. It's just a weird time for him to be champion. That Jon Jones came up and beat Cyril Gane like that, and then Aspinall has been looking great. Finishing all these tough dudes, and he's got this interim belt. But what does the interim belt mean when he gave a fight for the belt? The real belt. It's just it's a tough thing for him. But it's just kind of how the UFC works, and just weird timing for him.
Yeah, it makes sense on that point. So, Luke, let's give the respect back to Stipe. But what he's up against is the greatest fighter of all time. And as Weidman just said, we did see Jon against Cyril Gane. And shout out to Weidman.
His name is spelled a little weird, in fairness.
I like when Jon calls him Cyril Gane.
He calls him Serial Gane. Yeah,
Serial Gane. So, Luke, obviously against Gane, Jon, he looked like a wizard on the ground. He made Gane look like shit. When we see Jon bringing in heavy hitters, Gable Stevenson for wrestling, Gordon Ryan for jiu-jitsu, are you expecting Jon to hold an extreme advantage on the ground, or do we still need to put a lot of respect on not just Stipe's takedown defense, but the fact that outside of round one of the rematch, even DC couldn't fully hold down or dominate Stipe on the ground?
I want to just take a moment, if I may, because I know everyone thinks that, my blood boils at the very mention of Jon Jones, but I just want to say something. His career stat line, we're talking now through how many fights has he had total? I forget what his, 29 fights, nearly 30 fights, okay? Listen to this guy's stat line. It's insane. Career stat line. Strikes landed per minute, 4.29. Strikes absorbed, 2.22. Absurd. Nearly 2-to-1 landed versus absorbed. And by the way, both above average and then, below average. Striking accuracy, 57%, which is a good number. Not an amazing number, but a very good number. Striking defense, career-wide, 64%. Takedown per 15 minutes, 1.93. Takedown accuracy, 45%, but Habib's right around 50, so there's no big there. Career takedown defense, 95%. Career takedown defense. And then submission averages, not too many on his record, got a few at 0.5. Dude, that's his career stat line. That's absurd. That's absurd. And he's undefeated, basically undefeated the whole way through. Like, holy smokes, that's incredible. I forgot your question. It was about Jon. I'm sorry. I had to get
Jon's
that out.
ground game in the
the ground game. Sorry.
Yeah.
What was kind of interesting to me in the Reyes fight was there was a few times where Jon was trying to wrestle it to the ground and Reyes was able to resist. And it made Jon a little bit more desperate in subsequent attempts, and it made him a little bit more hesitant on the feet itself. I don't know if that's in particular because of the way in which Reyes was striking, or if there was something about not being able to play the multiple levels that caused that. But I would be looking for something similar here. To the extent that Stipe can stuff the ground game, I know you're asking about what happens when he gets there, but to the extent that he can stuff it, I think that would be a real problem for him. He would still have, obviously, Jones, a significant reach advantage, but nevertheless, that kind of inability to dictate the terms up and down, I think, would be a bit of a challenge, or a real setback for him, and how much it would diminish the overall potency of his striking. Now, once he gets it, I just don't buy you're going to sit there and look at Stipe flat on his back for very long. That dude is going to scramble. And part of the scouting report when Stipe first got to MMA was, yeah, this guy was something of a baseball prospect, but the reality is he can wrestle, he can strike, he's got good cardio, and he can box. Like, he was a Golden Gloves champion, all that stuff. And I don't think that should necessarily change a whole lot. Curtis Blades used to be one of Stipe Miocic's training partners, right, before he moved over to Colorado to help him get ready. I think even after that, he would bring him back for individual camps. This is a guy who knows how to wrestle, who knows how to get off the bottom, who knows how to stop takedowns, scramble through. If you're Jon, I think what you're looking for is not full takedowns, but halfway control positions. Some kind of stopping period where Jon doesn't fully have the takedown, but he's got enough of a control where, I almost said Aspinall, where Miocic can't just like rocket back to the top. He is stuck in an interim space, and Jon will do heavy damage there. And then that will begin to accumulate over time along the way. I think that's what I'm kind of looking for, wrapping him up in some kind of way where he's on his hands, on his knees, not on his shoulder, not flat on his back, right? I don't expect that, but kind of immobilized, stuck in quicksand, and Jon to do heavy work from that position.
Jon is strong. He's not as, he doesn't weigh as much as the Gon fight, but he's strong as F, smarter than every other fighter we see in there. And I mean, look, it's hard not to look at the shiny wrapping paper of Stevenson and Gordon Ryan's potential influence there, Luke. I mean, I would not be surprised if Jon is at, heavyweight jiu-jitsu master level at this point. He's had enough time to work on it, to be fair, over the last 5 years.
Well, so, I mean, even before that, this is not a guy, like a lot of guys from jiu-jitsu, this is not the case now. But, 10 years ago, there were not a lot of guys who knew how to, in jiu-jitsu, really capture wrists from turtle position to both break posture or control them or whatever the case may be. Jon already had all of that from wrestling. Jon was, again, kind of like a fuck up growing up, but a very accomplished wrestler, or at least a guy with a lot of promise in his wrestling future. And this is stuff he already, when he was in MMA, he already knew how to do it. And now you add in some of the Gordon Ryan tips about different positioning and different kinds of rides, top pins for jiu-jitsu or whatever. It's just going to make him extremely potent. Like, again, I'm of two minds, BC, and I wonder where you are on this. On the one hand, I think what we saw from Jon towards the end of his light heavyweight run, and the Gon fight didn't tell us much one way or the other, but towards the end of his light heavyweight run, where he was pretty much on the decline. I mean, he didn't fall off a cliff, but he was on the decline. And I can't tell how much of that was he burned out? Was it, he was actually on the decline and there's no way to get around that? Or, how much could he be rejuvenated by time off? It's a, easier weight class, generally speaking. And this will prove to him, this will prove to us that, like, oh, he's fully back and, maybe not in his prime, but pretty goddamn close. I can't quite tell what the true narrative is. And I'm hoping that Stipe can give us a little more information about that.
Well, you do hear a lot of people say if Jon is unable to keep Stipe down, and you made good points about the wrestler. I mean, even Francis Ngannou, who really, for the first time, showcased the wrestling in that top game in taking the title from Stipe. Stipe found, even under duress and damage, to get up consistently. So if that happens, Luke, and if this fight is contested for great lengths on the feet, I do hear a lot of people saying, look, it's not like Stipe has ever had anything but very good boxing in the heavyweight division, big time power, but Jon's the full kickboxer. How much do you think, I remember Jon stopping DC in the rematch with that big head kick. How do you think Jon's kickboxing will match up with Stipe's boxing if this fight goes long stretches in the center of the cage?
So Jon's got a 4-inch reach advantage, which is not the biggest advantage he's ever had, but it's still valuable. I don't quite look at it like that. So I would say it a little bit differently. This is something I've kind of noticed from him over time. He does throw on occasion combinations. Not to say he doesn't throw combinations. I suspect you'll see him throw. He doesn't tend to throw more than 2 or 3 strike combinations, but he'll throw them. But what he really likes to do is something, and I brought it up now ad nauseum on this week, but what I call single strike high variance, where what he does is he'll throw a jab from this side, and then he'll leg kick here, and then he'll, step over and, shovel a punch here, and then he'll overhand left, and then he'll teep up the middle, and then he'll head kick up here, where he's changing the target, and he's changing the tempo, and he's changing the velocity of what he's throwing, and he'll move his feet and change the range where you might even think he's out of range. And because you were expecting a jab to the body and then he throws a head kick, it just becomes so potent. What I mean to say is it's not so much that he's going to stay and just kind of kickbox with you. He has weapons at all ranges, and he varies them it looks like he's just picking them at random to us, but to him, he knows exactly kind of where he wants to go and in what trajectory he wants to throw it. And I think he's able to reset into kickboxing range either because he'll back up or the other opponent retreats, and then they're not expecting the weapon that they're getting, and then boom, he throws it up there. It's not like exactly like a kickboxing match in that way. It's more just taking advantage of a little tiny opening and then having, again, great decision-making along that way, because he's got such enormous length, obviously with his limbs, that it creates all these other problems and people understanding where they're supposed to be and how far they have to be away. Stipe's got to really be in his face on this one. That's kind of the issue to me. He can't really stay even at punching range, because Jon can, once he begins to mix and mix and mix and then changes that range just a little bit, now he's got even more variety of weapons to then throw and then change it back, and then the velocity and angle and everything's changing. That's kind of the way I would look at it. I see it a little bit differently in that regard.
I like that breakdown. So while Weidman's telling us, hey, we need to be talking about Stipe more, I almost wonder if people are talking too much about the layoff for Stipe, for a guy who's always in top end shape, very durable. Yes, he hasn't fought in 3 years, but Luke, why do we bring that up a lot? But we don't bring up that Jon has really fought that long in 5 years, right? That little snippet against Cyril Gane in the first half of that round, but it's a much longer completely out of the cage. And it wasn't like he was coming off of a devastating win before that. It was the very close fight with Reyes and the very close fight with Santos before that. So should we be having the same level and concerns based just on layoff, not being, the comfortability that comes with it? I know we don't tend to stress out about that when we're talking about the super elites and Jon Jones is the GOAT, but why are we overly worried about Stipe's aged in layoff when Jon, is it because Jon wasn't taking any damage for a 5-year period? I mean, what is it here?
Well, Stipe is also old. I mean, Stipe's old. Stipe's even old for heavyweight. 42 is old. I mean, that is...
Tell that to Randy Cooter, all right?
We would if he would show up on the show. He just doesn't. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't, late 30s, no big deal. Early 40s, you're starting to really turn a different kind of corner there. But I agree. Like, this is what I mean. I can't quite tell exactly where Jon is. I can't tell if he's rejuvenated from what had happened towards the end of his light heavyweight run, because the Gane fight, Gane's wrestling is not great. And though he fought like shit in that fight, I mean, it's just really, really, really hard to tell. I don't know if Stipe is the guy to help us get a better answer. I tend to think we probably get a better one than what Gane was able to give us. But like, can you imagine if Jon goes in there and like head kicks him in 30 seconds? We're still going to be like, what the fuck did we learn? We didn't learn a whole lot, So I would say this. I think that there is, at least for me, I think you can be of two minds and kind of, try to hold what seems like two contradictory thoughts. I do think he will be fully prepared, but I've seen Jon, when things get a little messed up, where he has to take on a late notice replacement or something, like, for example, like with OSP, he had a really kind of like he won, but it was kind of like a shit fight, He likes to have everything kind of orderly and like very examined, and everything kind of home in on that particular moment, and then he can really rise. When he has to adapt, it becomes a little bit harder for him. And so what I mean to say is, all that time off, I do think it will actually have some effect, probably in both directions. Neither guy can really claim. I mean, Stipe fought not as recently, but it's not like Jon's been super active.
Sure.
But dude, the reality is we just don't know with Jon.
A lot of questions.
All I'm trying to say is, if people out there have questions like, is Jon really back? Is he really that good? These are not unfair. We don't know the answer, but they're not unfair.
Dude, I love plus money on Stipe just because of that. Even though I believe ultimately, if you cared, that what I thought that John's going to go in there and win decisively when he does. So, Luke, I kind of want to put out there, like, is it better for the sport and for the UFC if Jon dominates Stipe in 4 minutes, doesn't take any damage, just picks him apart, stops him, because that might bring back Jon to the cage quicker and sooner and maybe more willing to challenge himself? Or is it better for the sport and the UFC and in our viewership that they have a fight of the year contender, or that Stipe pulls off this upset and we have a need for an immediate rematch? Do you have any thought on that?
I feel like if what you want are as many good fights as possible, Jon running over Stipe is probably best. Because the way Jon had framed it this week is, hey, if we go in there and, he looks good and he feels good and everything just kind of flows, he's going to want to do more. And the window is kind of closed as to what that might be. It would probably have to be Aspinall at that point. I guess he could drop the belt, but I don't know what the UFC would do at that point. I don't really know. I don't know what the average fan's appetite is for a Jon Jones. I don't know. He's just throwing out names, but like a Jon Jones versus Derek Lewis, I don't know what the appetite would be, because I feel like, dude, if you go in there and Stipe, first of all, Stipe beats him. We've already talked about this. It's fucking pandemonium. I mean, total disaster for everybody except Stipe, basically along the way. But let's say Jon wins and it's competitive and it's back and forth and it's a blood and guts kind of fight, like a Gustafsson fight. He sounds like he's going to call it a day on something like that. And again, he's had an amazing career, right? He's had an amazing career. But if you want another show of the Jon Jones experience, I think he has to steamroll Stipe to get there.
I wonder if Jon loses or is in a very close fight. I know that we could talk ourselves about him leaving the sport, but if he's not trying to protect the idea of an unbeaten record, I know that Matt Hamill loss may never become a no contest. Dana didn't even seem confident at the press conference when someone asked him that it could get changed, but maybe that would take off the pressure of Jon feeling like he needs to be perfect. I don't know. I mean, I could consider what if Stipe wins dominantly and then he's like, yeah, I'll take on Aspinall. And maybe that leads us to Jon wanting to come back because he's a competitor and fighting Aspinall. Or maybe Stipe wins and and retires, and then we get Tom versus Jon for the vacant title. I don't know. But all I know is that Jon does seem very motivated. He seems to be grasping for things to maybe give him that level of motivation. One of those things, obviously, is Stipe on the Countdown episode saying, come on, bitch, or whatever he said. Here's Stipe's reaction when he was told how upset Jon was about that, by the way.
He was a little upset at you for calling him a bitch.
Keep talking about that. But he was literally telling everyone he's going to beat my ass. I'm almost positive. Did he not say that before that? So, I mean, sorry. Well, did talk shit about me, but it's okay. All right, whatever. I don't
think. And then also he brought up your sparring partner choices.
I pay them. That was because they're my teammates, and they're like, well, we're not getting paid. So apparently I'm hiring people too. So whatever.
Do you think maybe he's just saying this to sort of build this fight up and build himself into needing like a bit of spite between you two to give himself more of an edge in the fight?
Maybe not. I mean, I'm not. I don't know what he's thinking, but yeah, that some of the stuff was just. I'm like, okay, I literally had no idea until someone told me. So it's funny. It's just comical.
Dude, Stipe's unfazed by everything.
He doesn't give a guy who runs into a burning building is just not afraid. And
I love it.
Like this.
He told me this week, he's like, I got too much going on with my family, my job, my kids. He's like, I don't have time to break people's hearts online and hurt people's feelings. He's like, I don't give a damn about this.
Let me ask you a question. What was I missed that one. What was the part about the sparring partners? What's he referencing?
I thought Jon had made a comment like, hey, Stipe, you can go out there and get as many black sparring partners as you can, but it's not going to do anything. But then Stipe's mentioning something about payment, so maybe I missed out on it.
Hey, Long Island Luke, do you know what this is about?
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. That's why he's the best in the business, Long Island Luke. Jon did give a response before the press conference. Let's hear it. I want you to think about it, Luke, when you listen. Is Jon just getting himself motivated? Is he trolling us, or is he really sensitive? Let's hear.
Okay. Now, more recently, Stipe Miocic called you a bitch and you put on that story, said you didn't need the disrespect. Is it still personal to you, or do you accept his apology?
No, I accept his apology, but at the end of the day, I don't think it was sincere at all. He's like, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings or whatnot, and there was another time a few months ago where he mentioned, at least my kids will never look at me as an asshole. He was talking about me and my relationship with my children. I realized that everyone loves Stipe. He's a nice guy. He's a firefighter. Initially, I didn't want to go there with him and have bad blood, but I don't care about him at all at this point. I have no reason to have any type of mercy or sympathy or play it classy or any of that stuff. It's all out the window now. And I fight out of love. I really love what I do, and I believe I get my energy and my power from a place of love. I will remember what he said when I'm punching him in the face.
Okay, all right. I mean, if that's what he needs to motivate himself and bring out the lion, I don't have an issue with it, but it is soft as baby shit, is it not, Luke?
Here's the thing. Yes, but also, dude, if there's one thing I've learned in all this time in the combat sports business, it's even true in boxing, although somewhat a little less true, but not really, a little less true. The best fighters are the most sensitive people in the world.
Yeah.
That's just and when I first got into the business, it was like mind blowing because you operate under this assumption that like this like incredibly tough guy, tougher than you could ever be, tougher than you could ever imagine. How can you possibly let words bother you? But they do. In fact, it's because over time what I realized is they get a me against the world, or me and my team anyway, against the world mentality. And any kind of verbal slight is kind of seen as a challenge to their own internal sense of superiority, even though they might feel like they're the most strongest and best fighter in the world. They want public recognition of that. And so any perceived lack of that is seen as some kind of challenge to their authority rather than understanding their place. But Stipe is not actually like that from what I can tell. He seemed a little bit less like that. So, do I think John's sensitive? I don't think there's any question, but so are most of your best fighters in the world. They're all pretty sensitive.
Yeah. Well, Stipe had a reaction on my channel that a lot of people shared online and couldn't believe it, Luke. Let's listen.
I just, if it doesn't go your way, you gotta figure a way to make your way.
I think that was Croatian, Luke. I didn't get it. Wow.
Listen, we don't joke about this kind of stuff because it's not really jokeable.
Yeah.
And that's, well, we do joke about it, but sometimes we don't. It's kind of a mixed bag. My man's got some speech issues, does he not?
He does, and I don't think it's like necessarily a hey, let's rescue him from the CTE type of situation, because there is, for years he just talks really fast in a low monotone voice. So he was clearer when he was eating at the press conference this week when we played those comments about the word bitch. But I think it's just kind of, I don't know, Luke. Some people do that. They kind of talk in a trailing down tone where the words rub against each other in like a casual at the side of their mouth way. Like they're sucking on marbles or something.
Like Tukey when she ate her Halloween candy when I told her not to, and I asked her what happened to her Halloween candy.
Yeah, she's like, no, I didn't. Yeah, I know that. Luke, we're going to have Shawn Porter in a couple minutes as we shift topics to Tyson Paul. We'll come back, of course, to UFC 309, but I do want to get your prediction. What are you expecting? How do you see this fight? Have you leaned on how Jon does this, or could you open that door for a big Stipe upset?
There's a lot of unknowns here. A lot of unknowns, as we've fully articulated in both directions. But for me, BC, I think Jon Jones gets it done. I don't know exactly how dominant it is. That's the part I can't quite, I don't have a clear picture. But I suspect he stops him inside the distance. I think somewhere around the third round. I think Jon Jones wins here. Again, I think Jon took this fight because he thinks it's very winnable. He's probably right. I suspect Jon wins.
I'm with you on that. I got Jon by stoppage within 2 rounds. I think he'll do it via submission. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love for Stipe's, for his part, for his legacy, for the respect we have from him, that he can make this a fight. Can he hurt Jon? Can he get Jon off of plan A? But for everything we're going to say here about Jon and criticize the words he said and the choices of it, the guy's the best fighter we've ever seen. The guy figures out how to win fights. I have no doubt that he planned so strategically over the past year. He is coming off a very serious injury with surgery, a 18-month layoff. but we don't bring that up sometimes with the GOATs because of how great they are. And that certainly is Jon Jones. So, Luke, I'm looking for him to really make a splash on the ground and pound that he's mentioning. He does seem to have motivation, obviously, just as much as the result, if not more. We want to hear what happens next. So, Luke, what does happen next? Do they let Aspinall in the cage? If Jon gets the nod, you and I believe he will. The odds are almost astronomical that he will. How does the post-fight interview play out? Because this is reality TV. Is he going to put the gloves down and walk away? Is he going to do I'm not really sure, I have to talk to my family and Dana? Like, what's going to happen here?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, one thing I also want to point out here is this fight could go a million directions. What if Stipe comes out bat out of hell and he's looking great? Jon's also just shown to have a clutch gene, man. Like, when it's time to win rounds, he wins rounds. It's remarkable how good he is at that and how he's consistently been good at that. When he needs a round, he gets it. So I just have a hard time seeing him losing. But again, who the hell knows what kind of condition he's in. In terms of what happens next, I think if Stipe wins, there's no way they don't bring in Aspinall. But I think if Jon wins easily, I think they bring him in. Like, I think Tom will be there, but I really think they're going to play it by ear. And in part, almost out of respect. Like, for example, what if it is a blood and guts affair? Like, what if it is like one of these things where they're both banged the fuck up? You know what I mean? Not exactly like Hendo Shogun, but something like that. And they, these guys are just in a tough place. They look like shit. They're tired. Bringing in Aspinall after that is not necessarily a great look, no matter what. But I think if Jon goes in there and smokes him, they might, yeah.
Right. And it's not that I'm not even a monster Aspinall fan. I think he's fun and great to watch. I think he'll be great. But everybody's like, oh, you're Dick Ride and you guys just hate Jon. No, he's the interim champion. He's been that for a year. He's got a title defense. I'm happy that the UFC and Dana White have said, okay, we waited on the Stipe thing, but enough is enough. You will not see that interim belt, defended against again, which I think if Stipe wins, that, like I said earlier, that could make it, if they don't do an immediate Jon rematch, that could make things very interesting on how this division plays out.
Here's the reality. Tell me if I'm wrong. To the best of what we can tell, which again is limited information, but to the best of what we can tell, the reason why Jones versus Aspinall is so appealing is Jon has a bunch of advantages in certain respects, and Aspinall has some advantages in certain respects, and we don't know quite how it's going to match up. It's a 50-50 fight. That's why I want to see it. People keep thinking we want to see Jon fight Aspinall because, Aspinall's going to wipe the floor with him. Dude, yeah. Aspinall, on this show, we have talked about many of his technical hangups and how he doesn't have any experience. Talk about a fight going long. Jon has rescued himself multiple times in fights that have gone long. We haven't even seen Aspinall get there. To me, it's a coin flip, but that's why we want to see it.
Exactly. I've said it so many times. I don't want to see Jones lose. I want to see him win every single fight because I realize how special he is, not just to this era, but all time. I think it's actually incredible that for all the pitfalls he's had and traps that he set himself that he fell into, that he's still here, basically undefeated, still a champion, and on the verge of cementing that all-time greatness. But Luke, I thought he was going to go up to heavyweight. I'm really honest, like maybe 2 years after he won the title against Shogun, because he was tearing through that division so fast in his 205 prime that I thought, man, let's see him go up against Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos, and that era would eventually produce Stipe and Francis. And I don't say that again because I want to see Jon knocked out, because I believed that he was going to beat any heavyweight they put in front of him. And I'm still not sure I'm wrong on that, even today. So, Jon, show us your greatness. I'm happy that you're back. Just stop setting traps on yourself, basically. Unless he's been setting traps on us for weeks and months, and he has no problem fighting Aspinall. He's just trying to drive up that price and create headlines. Maybe. I just don't believe he'd be that long-term planning and diabolical when he's so focused on the fight. I think he's showing us his natural instincts. All right, before Shawn Porter gets here and we transition into the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul zone, let's go to topic number 3, our co-main event and undercard here for UFC 309. Not the deepest undercard, not the deepest at all, but this co-main event is a banger. 5 rounds in the lightweight division, a rematch of their title fight from 2021. And this time, Luke, the champion has a name. He just doesn't have a belt. Charles Oliveira who submitted Chandler the first fight after getting knocked down early and nearly stopped, is a minus 265 betting favorite, despite coming off the close loss to Arman Tsarukyan, and Chandler coming in 2 years away from his last fight at plus 215. Luke, how fired up are you for this great rematch?
I can't wait. This is the best fight on the card. This is so much fun. And BC, like, there's so many ways this could go as a fight itself and what you could do with the results. So the winner could ostensibly get a title shot right away. That's something that could happen. We'll see. Again, I think a lot of that will depend on timing. I don't know about that, but that's one way it could go. Another way it could go, BC, is doesn't matter who wins. Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira. Winner that has a date with Max Holloway for the BMF belt. Holy fucking shit. Yes. I'll take that. Dude, I would, depending on how the fight goes, I would even accept the loser of this bout fighting Max Holloway for the BMF. I'm not saying that's like the most, justified way to do it, but like there's just no way this fight is going to suck unless something accidental happens, right? Somebody, and which we don't want. We don't want an injury. We don't want a bad reffing situation. We don't want, obviously, any kind of fucked up judging thing, but I just feel like this fight, I don't know how long it's going to last. It's such a crazy thing, but based on the fight itself, based on the results, based on where it could go, there's like, I don't even know what about this fight you could even dislike. Are these guys exactly at the peak of their primes? No. So you're getting it, a little bit late. However, you already got it once already when at least one of these guys was in the peak of their powers in Charles Oliveira. And we're not too far away from that necessarily. So this is just such a fun fight. So many questions for both guys, especially Michael Chandler. I freaking love it. What is there to dislike about
nothing?
This fight? Seriously.
Nothing. I mean, even Chandler coming in on that 2-year layoff, unsuccessfully getting Conor McGregor into the cage, and even with him having lost 3 of his last 4 coming in, but all fight of the nights, all action wars against some of the best in this division. Chandler, Luke, it's hard not to. I mean, I'm serious. It's hard not to cheer for the guy because he worked so damn hard. He's such an optimist, even if he got ultimately played by Conor, and he did, he's always silver lining it, always trying to find out. So what he's saying, Luke, in this time off is that he has trained and prepared himself not to do the I'm only here for not here for a long time, here for a good time. He's talking about getting back into title contention and winning the title. He's used this 2 years in what he's trying to say in his own self-narrative to rebuild himself in every possible way, mentally, physically, spiritually, so that it's not 38-year-old action fighter Michael Chandler coming in, but in his words, the best Michael Chandler ever. I want to show you first pictures of Chandler in the final days of his training camp, and then get your take on, do you think it's possible that the layoff could have served him perfectly to regenerate and that we may see the most dangerous Chandler we've ever seen in the octagon?
Dude, he looks like,
damn,
diced to the socks. Like,
I need his pharmacist's number right now. You know what I mean? Right
throw up the picture again one more time, Long Island. Look at that, bro. He's got the trap bar deadlift going on. Just not an ounce of. It's absurd.
Damn.
It's absurd. How old is he? 39 or 30?
38. But his body is a wonderland, dude.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. He keeps himself in great shape year round. I don't think he really he doesn't pull a Patty Pimblett, right? He doesn't get fat as hell and then has to lose it all again. He just stays lean as shit. He's in incredible condition, so this is what makes me hype for it. It's like, on the one hand, the guy just burned 2 years of his career when he came to the UFC, and he knew this was the time to strike, and I feel really bad for him in that regard. But, he also made his own decisions. He's an adult. Like, he has to kind of live with where he's at. At the same time, going back to the Stipe conversation, BC, if he had any long-term injuries, he probably got a chance to heal them. He finally got a chance, I think he spoke to Ben Folks about this, to get out of the camp routine, take a minute, work on some skill development issues, and then bring it back to the forefront. Plus, in that time, you got to see Arman Tsarukyan beat Charles Oliveira, and I know that fight got close with that guillotine attempt and some other stuff, but at the same time, you got to probably pick up on a little bit of that. So, like, this fight, man, the first fight that these guys had was a rock'em sock'em affair. This one, I think, will be that, but they're going to both have some added wrinkles to add to it. It's going to be a banger.
Look, I wonder how much those added wrinkles, and Michael hasn't avoided this topic, will come in the wrestling department. Because we know he has that great background, but he's really fallen in love with slugging, landing those big athletic right hands from over the top and being, a constant agitator, aggressor, sometimes reckless pressure. Do you see him returning to his roots here and maybe really trying to hold Oliveira down, even though then you're walking right into the den of the best submission artist the sport's ever produced?
I mean, yes and no. Like, I do think that guys are understanding better now how to neutralize certain jiu-jitsu positions. Like, for example, during that time that Chandler fought Oliveira, a lot of guys were doing this bit where they would, and it's common in MMA. It's like a completely common position where either you took the guy down or he's flat on his back facing you and the opponent is standing up looking over him. And they may be looking to pass. They might be looking for a ground and pound opportunity, one of the two or both. And during that time, in most guys' situations, you have to control a leg or both legs, at least one typically, and then you make your move. Oliveira during this time was benefiting from the fact that people hadn't picked up on the reality that if you stand above him while he's in guard, he's going to enter into what's like a De La Riva guard, a reverse De La Riva guard, a De La Riva X guard, like some variety of that where he's weaving the legs in between yours for these entanglements, and then he can get underneath you, he can get behind you, he can do all kinds of, he can go for a leg lock. Like, it's just a big problem. Guys, more recently, Arman Soyukian did none of this. He was able to go chest to chest and keep him flat. That was a workable thing. Like, now this is a 5-round fight. That was a 3-round fight. There's some notable differences. That's a big one. But I'm just saying guys have gotten a little bit better about staying away from the standard good position for MMA, bad position when going against Charles Oliveira. There's just more tape on him to this point. And so I feel like, if the thing that, on the one hand, that should benefit Chandler. Like, he should know, I fought this guy. We've now seen other guys have some success against him. We can do a lot of that. The only thing that gives me some pause about that, BC, is Michael Chandler fights Michael Chandler style. Like, he just is all action because that's the way he is here. He can't help himself. And a lot of times that's good enough to get the dub. A lot of times it gets him into trouble as well. What's it going to be here in a 5-round contest against, I think, a 35-year-old Charles Oliveira? We're going to find out.
Yeah, damn right. And I never even heard of a De La Hoya guard before. Luke, does that come
De La
with
Riva. De La
ass
Riva.
clap Thursdays or what? Yeah, there you go.
Dude, De La Riva, he has, it's a guard where essentially, if you're standing above me, my outside leg goes against your same side outside leg, and then my toes curl in to the inside of the hamstring / thigh. It's called De La Riva guard. It's based on a guy named Ricardo De La Riva. De La Riva was Anderson Silva's jiu-jitsu coach during the latter part of his MMA run. Like, that's how, it's like a legendary guard, and that guy was also Anderson Silva's coach. Like, kind of a crazy thing.
Is it weird that Rafael Cordero is Mike Tyson's assistant boxing coach?
Dude, like, how did that come to be? I don't even understand that.
He was with him for Roy Jones, but it is a wild connection to have there.
Good. I hope he gets paid. I hope he gets paid.
Indeed. Randy Couture still to come, folks. All right.
This is what I mean about booking fighter interviews. We love Shawn Porter. We love Shawn Porter. Shawn's the man. But Shawn, what the fuck, bro?
Yeah, I don't know what the issue is. Charles Oliveira, though, Luke, Bronx, he's gone back to the dyed silver hair, which means somebody's going to get their girl impregnated. Luke, when he goes to that, right? It's time. It's go time. I know his stance of the aberration of the Islam loss, worst night of his career, worst 10 minutes of his career. It's not helping by coming off the loss also to Saryukin, even though he did have moments and was very competitive in that fight. Is there still a title run in Charles Oliveira in your eyes, though?
Are you asking, could he get...
I'm not asking you, will he win it? But I'm asking you at 35, is it still in him to go all the way and potentially regain that belt?
Unlikely, but yes. Yes. So, for example, if he goes in there and smokes Chandler, right, and looks awesome doing it, and then, we love Charles Oliveira. Everybody loves Charles Oliveira, right? He's impossible to dislike. Now, maybe they don't want to do an Islam rematch because maybe Islam doesn't want it, and the first fight was not very close, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a couple ways where that could be a problem. But even then, he could fight Max Holloway. That could be a thing. I would say this. I find it very possible for him to get a title shot. I find it unlikely he can go all the way back and recapture it. And for that reason, it's just there's a lot of factors between people getting a little bit more accustomed to his style. Islam already smoked him one time. It's tough for me to see him getting all the way back to that title, but potentially fighting and beating Max Holloway, getting a rematch with Islam. I think those are very much on the table, depending on what happens on Saturday.
And I think Chandler's in a spot. I know Chandler's saying that it's a potential #1 contender fight for him, but he's got a lot of company goodwill for going through the Ultimate Fighter. He's always been a company guy, takes big opportunities on short notice. So he's going to get something huge. But you mentioned Max Holloway. Max went on his own channel this week to talk about this co-main event, and he wants a fight against the winner, it sounds. Let's listen.
I heard Oliveira said he wanted to go for the BMF. That's pretty cool. And Oliveira, I know we have some history, and I know that if that fight was ever offered to me, brother, it'd be an honor to share the octagon with you, bro. You're a beast. You're an animal. And, I can't wait. I can't wait for this fight. This fight is huge.
I'd like Max against either guy, which I think you said earlier, but specifically a Do Bronx rematch at this point in their careers, that's a title fight, basically, even though it's just the BMF belt,
I mean, dude, what is there to dislike about the BMF belt being on the line between Max Holloway at 155 and Charles freaking Oliveira? I mean, just say yes. That is such a great fight, All
right, here's the deal. Chandler's lost 3 of 4, and he comes really close when he loses because he fights like an animal. Is he going to lose again here, Luke, or is the 2-year rejuvenation, the shape he's in, the amount of time he's put into his game preparing for Conor and really trying to take this to the next level, and the fact that Oliveira's on the second half, still dangerous, but also human, starting to feel like Chandler's time, Luke. I'm still going to go with Chandler by knockout. What do you think about that?
I think this time, when they fought the last time, I felt a little bit more confident Charles would win. I mean, maybe I don't know how I predicted it back then, but it just seemed like it made more sense, maybe. This time, I don't know. This time, it's a little bit harder to say. Charles is older. He has been a little bit more figured out. But at the same time, 2 years for Chandler away, that just can't work in his favor. I really do. I mean, we do picks for this because we have to, but this is, to me, a pick 'em. I mean, what are the odds? I think you may have said it. I may have missed it.
-265 Oliveira, +215 Chandler.
Wow. Long Island Luke, how do you feel about that?
I think the odds are accurate. I'll say I'm definitely siding with Oliveira.
Okay.
Chandler's only win in the last 3 years came to Tony, and he lost the first round on all 3 judges' scorecards in that fight.
Okay, but he
before.
fucking
Sure, that
he
front kick
smoked
was
him after that.
Yeah, but it was 10 seconds into round 2. I mean, he essentially lost that entire fight before just landing that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not confident in Chandler at all, especially coming off the layoff.
I'll go with Oliveira. That was kind of my pick anyway. Talking to him kind of reinforced it a little bit, but I'm with you a little bit, BC. I think
it's his time. He's right. It's his time now. It's
a little late. It's a little late, but I still the question is, does he still have a little bit of magic left? He might. He definitely
might. Do you
might.
think he could get Max, by the way? If he knocks Do Bronx out, is it Islam or nothing for him, or do you think he could get Max?
So here's the thing. Imagine he beat Oliveira the way he beat Ferguson, with that, just a ridiculous KO, right? I don't see how he wouldn't get a title shot because of everything he gave up. I think the UFC wants. He's been a company man, dude. He was going to speak in favor of the plaintiffs at the Kung Lee lawsuit. You know what I mean?
But by the way, just real quick, Saryukian's got next, and Islam isn't like he fights 3 times a year.
That's true, but God, would he want to wait for that? I don't know. That's the interesting part. The timing of this changes the equation. I would just say in a perfect world, I think he would get it because it'd be a fresh matchup, and Michael Chandler is nothing if not insanely exciting, and to fight for a UFC title, that'd be hard to turn down. But I think with Oliveira, even if he smokes Chandler, I don't know how they go with that. Again, it could be a title shot, but I heard that Max Holloway BMF thing just kind of sitting out on the side is. It's such a great option for the UFC to have here.
For the record, Dana did say this week regarding Conor's return late next year. Luke, I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Okay, there we go.
Oh yeah, he'll be back in 2025 in the later part of the year.
Dude,
he's going to be 38 by the time he returns.
And he's going to be
38.
on 675 consecutive days of cosplaying 1985 Vince Neil. I mean, come on. Luke, also, we got a middleweight tilt on the main card. It's a shitty main card. I'm sorry, it is. Love the main, love the co-main. Have a lot of interest in this fight. Bo Nickal back as a minus 1,200 favorite against the plus 750 Paul Craig. Luke, first and foremost, and you know we love Paul Craig. Let's fucking go, Scotland. But our guy is 36, and Luke, 4 losses in his last 5, 3 by stoppage. Is he win or go home here in your eyes?
I do love Paul Craig. I feel like, he's tried to reinvent himself here at middleweight. I don't think it's gone according to plan. This was my problem. It's like, dude, and I feel bad saying this because we love Paul Craig. He was so nice. But dropping weight classes or changing weight classes, I should say, because you can go up or go down. But changing weight classes, especially when you go down, it's supposed to enhance the kind of game you already have, right? So if you have like a real physical dominant wrestling style and you drop from 205 to 185, that could potentially serve you pretty well. But that's really not what he has. He's just kind of a guard player, and he doesn't have especially great head movement when he's standing, BC. And so it's like those things don't go away. And then the guys at 185, they get a little bit faster. In certain ways, it almost magnifies the problem.
And his chin's going. It's going to go. The chin's going to go.
He's been getting teed off on quite a bit. Now, Bo Nickal's, I don't think he's a finished product by any stretch of the imagination. And Paul Craig can rescue some victories from the jaws of defeat a couple of times, but it seems like a tough fucking fight for him, bro. A real tough fight.
It really does. And I really feel like, as Bo has said this week, he's going to get a chance to show off his submission game, but obviously he's going to get a chance to show off his striking first. Luke, Bo is 6-0. He went past the first round in his last fight for the first time at UFC 300 against Cody Brundage. Do you subscribe to any belief that he was exposed at all in that fight? He got hit a little bit. It was good to see. Brundage put up a fight.
He was on such a steamrolling kind of thing that was accompanied by a weird media cycle where it was like, oh, he could just fight Hamzat now. And then he goes into one of these fights and he faced, like, I wouldn't call stiff resistance, but enough resistance to make that hype look kind of silly, right? So the problem is he's in another fight where he's like, what was he? You said minus 1,200?
Yes.
To win. Like, he has no choice but to thrash Paul Craig. And if there's any resistance, it's going to look kind of bad. So I don't think he will face a ton of resistance. But what I was going to say is they need to find a way to matchmake him against somebody who can really put him through his paces. And I'm not exactly sure what that is. I just don't feel like Paul Craig gets us meaningfully close.
I'm with you. Luke, our guest is here. It's time to transition into all things Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul and the boxing side of things. On behalf of DraftKings, a friend of the program, 2-time welterweight world champion, Showtime Shawn Porter. Yes,
there he is.
Of the Porter Way podcast. Shawn, are you in Dallas right now? Because you're at every fight, every time.
I'm actually missing this one. I get hired to do a lot of work, which is why I'm everywhere. I didn't get hired to do this one. I'm not
okay.
mad.
Okay.
Yeah, well, but it looks like based on the hat you're wearing, you're out delivering the newspaper out in the 19th century. So
I was out delivering kids to school and other things. So
hey, I got midlife crisis hats just like that. Okay, put some respect back on our names here. Shawn, it's so weird because Luke said it himself this week. It's like in boxing, not a lot of people are going out of their way to talk incessantly about Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. But outside of boxing, every single person is texting me all day. My mom is so into this fight. What do we do with this fight as true boxing fans?
Yeah, I mean, as true boxing fans, I'm going to keep saying what I've been saying since Jake Paul jumped onto the screens boxing. If you understand what you're watching, what else needs to be said? He's an entertainer. He's a what do you call him? A YouTuber, social media guy, all that kind of stuff. He brings a different level of audience, and that audience, those eyes aren't educated to what we know about this sport. Don't expect what we know to show up in this sport. Even though it's Iron Mike Tyson, don't expect what we know to show up in this sport. Expect what we need more of in this sport to show up, which is entertainment.
Wow. Wow. The obvious question here is what we saw yesterday when 58-year-old Mike Tyson, the day after a weird press conference performance where he was either really in the zone or really didn't want to be there. We saw during the face-off, and we have video here from Friday's weigh-in of apparently Jake Paul stepping on the foot of Mike Tyson, who was wearing socks. Jake was wearing shoes, and Mike delivered the boom. And this is great for promotion. It's hard not to get fired up because that was a real slap.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the fighter inside Mike Tyson. Was that to send a message? Should that be taken dead serious, loud and clear from Jake, from odds makers, betting, from everyone entering this fight this evening?
I got to tell you, first and foremost, I appreciate it. Before realizing that he had his foot stepped on, I just assumed, Mike, you really are doing whatever you want to do to sell this fight, aren't you? That wasn't him selling the fight so much as it was being in a moment, in a zone. And that's what happens when it's go time, when we're faced with war, where war is right ahead of us. Our minds are triggered to just ready to explode. And so I think that was more real than I knew it to be in the moment. However, it's still a part of the show, which is why the fight continues to go on, which is why Jake stands there like it didn't hurt. Let's keep it real. A real fighter would have been doing any and everything they needed to do to get to Mike. It don't matter that it's Mike Tyson. A real fighter would have been trying to go after that and get that back, So it's a part of the show. I think if anything, we can say the show has began. We can expect that kind of fire from Mike on fight night. But here's what I know as an athlete, which is what most people don't know and understand, and why you can't see very many fighters go 12 rounds in a boxing match, is because he's older and he doesn't, that energy that he just showed right there in that moment, he'll have moments of energy like that, but he won't be able to sustain it. So no one should expect the Iron Mike Tyson that was 25, 30, 40 years old. Everybody wants that Mike because everybody wants to see the problem child get hurt, but the problem child is going to be all right.
Okay, Shawn, let's talk a little X's and O's, right? Tell me from a real boxing eye, like imagine you were hired to coach the guy. You had to like really figure this out. Give me a couple things Jake Paul legitimately has that's pretty good. We're not talking Bud Crawford level or even like, top 15 level, but some things he can do well. And then a couple of things you notice from a technical perspective that might get him in trouble.
I don't know, man. He has shown power. I think that if anybody's talking about Jake, they're talking about his right hand. He's shown power, but he's shown power against older opposition. He's shown power against opposition that have been in a lot of wars and don't have the punch resistance. Again, these are the things that we as fight fans, we as boxing analysts, these are the things that we know that people that watch him don't know. When you talk about what he does well, maybe timing. Maybe timing. I put that before the power because people don't, again, things that people don't understand. If you don't have the timing, the power don't matter. Deontay Wilder, amazing power, but without the timing, with the likes of a Tyson Fury, he never finds that moment. The power don't matter, So the things that might get him in trouble, pulling straight back. Everything that the amateurs do, he does. He's an amateur fighting on a very, very high scale. And I'm saying that to be respectful. He truly is an amateur fighter fighting on a very high scale. So he does everything that he does is very amateur. The hand being down, the bouncing right in the same position. You don't see boxers bounce in the same position. We bounce back and forth because we know that at any moment we need to be able to create space. Amateurs do this, right? And, so I think there's a lot of things that could get him in trouble, but I don't think Mike's going to be able to capitalize on very much of it.
All right. So the last time we saw Mike was about 4 years ago.
By the way, this is my disclaimer. I'm not trying to talk myself into a fight. I want to make sure that this is clear. If Jake was to call me out, you guys won't see me get in the ring with Jake Paul. I'm not here for this. But I got to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough. That's why we wanted you here. All right, but for Mike, right? Last time we saw him was about 4 years ago. Was the Roy Jones Jr. exhibition bout? By the way, mostly the same rules: 8 rounds, 2 minutes. I don't remember what size the gloves were, but it was pretty similar. Although the difference, of course, is that Roy was also old. Nevertheless, Mike has a famous peekaboo style. And of course, we're not talking about from his heyday, but you saw even a little bit of that against Roy Jones Jr. 4 years have elapsed. Tell me from a technical perspective what you can actually expect from Tyson for at least, I don't know, a couple of rounds.
Yeah, I think I think it has to be a couple of rounds at most. And it's the analogy I use. Mike is just a classic car. The classic car that still looks great and is in great condition, especially for as many miles are on the classic car. But when you pull the classic car out, you're just going to drive at 35 miles per hour. You're not going to take that bad boy up to the 100 miles per hour, to even the 80 miles per hour like you used to. You ain't going to do that no more. If you did that to the classic car, how long are you going to be able to keep it up there? That's why you don't do it, So if Mike comes out, he has to be patient. He has to pace himself. If he's able to pace himself, we may see a couple of bursts here and there, but the way I think it's going to happen, I don't know how smart he is. I don't know how smart the team is around him. Big separation between the Mike in his heyday and even the Mike of that fight that fought Roy. The part of the game that's evolved so much is the scientific side of boxing. And so you have a lot of fighters that have strength and conditioning coaches now, nutritionists now. Mike don't come from that. So if Mike don't come from that, then how can we expect him to be smart and strategical now? So again, trying to be as respectful and loving to Mike as I can, but I don't think Mike's going to be able to keep up a certain pace that's needed to beat the young Lamborghini, and the Lamborghini, the guy driving it, he's out of control himself, So I think it's going to be more fun for us than anything.
Do you worry at all? And I mean that word literally. Worry.
Let Brian ask a question.
He's got the next one.
Yeah,
hey, you just deliver the paper and then pipe down. In all seriousness, I have seen some people be like, I'm like legitimately terrified for Mike's health. Are you? I think all of us are probably a little bit concerned. Are you worried? Are you terrified even?
I got a feeling what we didn't see yesterday. I don't think we saw respect. I think if anything, Jake stepping on his toes was probably him trying to disrespect Mike, and Mike came right back with the same disrespect. On fight night tonight, I think we're gonna get more respect, and I think it'll be safer than for both guys, safer than most people want it to be.
Interesting. I want to make the Mayweather-McGregor comparison only on this, Shawn. It seems like as the years go on, we've almost come to terms with the idea that Floyd probably carried Conor, let him gas himself out. I hear people say Floyd didn't really train or take that seriously. And maybe I got fooled watching it live in the arena that Conor was doing better than he actually was. Do you expect Jake to carry Mike? Do you expect Jake to hold a lot to try to mute anything Mike's going to bring to the table? How does Jake deal with the fact that he could get knocked out, but he's also expected to beat up this old man?
Quick story. If you have never been around fighters on fight night, a big fight, all of us young fighters, the champions, we all sit around the ring and we all sit next to each other and we all talk about the fight. What you see me do on TV, a lot of these fighters can do what I do. I'm just the one doing it right now because I probably smile the best. But anyway, so when Mayweather-McGregor was happening, everybody, man, what is Mayweather doing, man? He tripping, man. He gonna lose and da 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 da. After about 6 rounds, and I mean everybody was frantic, and I'm talking about, I'm not gonna name any names, but the who's, especially of PBC fighters, when they fought, we were all sitting around each other, and for the first 3 to 4 rounds, everybody was worried that Floyd was gonna lose the fight. After about 6 rounds, everybody started to lay back and say, oh, he was just carrying him. He was just doing that. And then we came to realize he smarter than all of us. Take this kid to the deep waters and he won't be able to swim at all. On the other side of that, I do think that we could see a situation where Jake is carrying Tyson. I think that what we'll see early is a lot of grabbing and holding from Jake. And I think we're going to get some antics as well. I think that that's going to also wear down Mike. And I think that if anything, it'll add the level of what if he gets loose and lets off on Jake. I don't think that's going to happen. If I could bet anything, I'd bet we'd see Jake carry Tyson more than anything. Trying to be as respectful as possible, especially to Mike. But you just get to a point, and I know he's trying to define and beat all of the odds with his age and all those kinds of things. I'm not a believer, so hopefully he makes me a believer on tonight.
Indeed. The 14-ounce gloves, Shawn. I did hear Roy Jones say when he fought Mike 4 years ago, he was blown away at how hard Mike hits, even with the expectations and also the head movement and defense he was blown away on. It's like, do the 14-ounce gloves mute Tyson's power? What's it really like with those gloves compared to the 10 or the 8-ounce? And could Mike with one shot end this fight realistically?
Number one, Mike with one shot can realistically end this fight. Number two, again, you have a fighter who ain't used to getting hit. Okay, definitely not used to getting hit with 8s and 10-ounce gloves. The 14-ounce don't matter. If he touches Jake and this fight is what it could actually be, and he touches Jake, he could actually seriously hurt Jake. Jake, it takes years to develop a chin. You don't just wake up with a chin. Okay, so if the kid ain't on his job and ain't as strong as he thinks he is, this could actually go south. I don't expect it to, but it could.
It's what's going to make everybody tune in without question and stay with it as the fight goes on. The best we all feel like we know Tyson because, if you're a fight fan, you grew up with him. If you played the video game, if you were a teenager like I was when he got out of jail and you just forgive what he did because it's Mike Tyson, right? Unlike any other athlete ever. So
Right.
We all love him. We care for him. But if you can get in his head, why is he doing this fight?
Oh, great question. It probably is just simply pride. He probably has always been the man. He has always been the man. And I think probably more than anything, when Jake started talking about possibly fighting him and the things that he could do to him, I got a feeling this pride. Right after the pride comes the money. And, maybe, the thing that we can't downplay is the fact that this is the sport that Mike has grown up doing and loves entirely. And so I'm sure that it's a lot of that as well, where he just has an opportunity to do what he loves. I think he'll be safe. I think he'll be all right.
I mean, here's the thing I come down to on this one.
Oh,
Somebody asked me this week, they were like, why is Tyson doing this? Is it just for the money? And I was saying to myself, I'm like, why is that a bad thing? I mean, I know the implication. Yeah. The implication is you are doing it for the money and you're so unprepared and you're so unready for it. It'll be a disaster. But I remember that. Do you remember when Tank Davis fought Ryan Garcia and Ryan's like, it's about more than money. And Tank is like, no, it's not, you fucking idiot. It's about this. And I kind of had that feeling. I'm like, yeah, he's doing it for the money. It's called prize fighting, Shawn. Why is that so bad?
It's not so bad, but for Mike Tyson, and the big thing is everyone knowing how much money he's made or whatever they think he's made, and then knowing how much he's lost or whatever they think he's lost. The big thing for this is whenever you see a fighter, it just kind of is what it is. Whenever you see a fighter come back to the ring, the first thing you think of is the bank account. Does he need that? Because like Tank said, we do it for the money. We do it because it's what we love to do. If you're someone like me, this was the vehicle to get me to where everything else that I'm doing in life. And I felt like I had to go through this in order to get where I am now. We all have our reasons why we do it, But the thing we cannot close our eyes to is how much money we're going to make in one night. And so it's not a bad thing, but at the same time, get out of Mike's business. Don't worry about what Mike got in his bank account. Worry about what you got in your bank account, okay? But that's kind of the thing. When a fighter comes back to the ring, everybody's thinking, oh, he's hurting for cash.
But Shawn, you got to think of how his career ended and how bad those last 7 or 8 years was when he was getting on the pay-per-view level against secondary fighters and sometimes looking for his way out, trying to bend people's arm backwards. The threat of another bite. Do you think there's a big part of him that knows he punted away? I mean, he did make the Hall of Fame, but he made the Hall of Fame because of 3 incredible years from when he won the world title. He was like 22 when it started to go away, meaning he was kind of, not training as hard. He didn't have the people in the corner that cared about him. How much do you think like this is him trying to finish the story on his own terms?
I can see that as well. Yeah, I can see that as well. And why not? Again, you have to go into his mind once, or, if those questions are presented, you would hope that he's as transparent as possible. And I think that would be a beautiful part of this story. If he came out, win, lose, or draw, and came out and said, I just wanted to right a wrong that I made, Here's another thing to look at. Mike, through his entire career, never controlled his career. Maybe at the very end of his career, he controlled everything that was going at the very end. But for the entirety of his heyday, of his magnificence, there was always someone else orchestrating everything that was being done. This is probably the first time in a very long time, if at all, he's had an opportunity to control boxing. I appreciate it.
If I may, Shawn, I do want to spend just at least a little time talking about this ridiculously good co-main event. My question would be as follows. Will the second fight look meaningfully different than the first one?
I don't think so. I think they're going to look the exact same. I think Katie Taylor has the ability to make adjustments, but again, if she makes adjustments, I think the only adjustment she might be making is creating space. If she's able to create space and make this fight more decisive, then she wins the fight decisively. So maybe that could be the only adjustment, but I think Amanda's going to fight the same way. I don't think she has the ability to fight any other way than right in front of her opponent now. She doesn't have the legs that she used to. She doesn't have the reaction timing that she used to, and things of that nature. So I really think this is dependent on Katie Taylor. If Katie Taylor comes out the same, this fight looks the same. The adjustment that I feel Katie Taylor could make is being more of a counterpuncher and creating space. Again, now here we go. If Katie's as good and her team is as good as they could and should be and all those kinds of things, then y'all should know this adjustment. Y'all should know that Amanda can't move the way that she used to, and y'all should be able to create space and counterpunch her and make this fight more decisive opposed to the war that you guys had before. It was beautiful. But if you want to win, that's the adjustment you make, in my personal opinion.
Getting back to this main event, one thing we've heard from Jake Paul is like he told us this years ago, by the way. Brian Campbell and I sat down with him. I think this was like the first or second Woodley fight, and he told us this. And he made it clear this week, which is, I want to fight Canelo. And it's like, here's the thing. You beat Mike Tyson on Netflix, and it seems like this thing is going to do huge numbers. I'm not saying that there wouldn't necessarily be commercial interest for it, but dude, the gap in skill is going to be, I don't know if any commission could even license a fight like that.
Right.
Is that even possible?
It shouldn't be. That should not be possible. But
in Texas, anything's possible, Shawn.
We've seen some of these sanctioning bodies try to get involved, and even when they got involved, I said, just make a social media belt, like just make an influencer title. Why do you have to integrate them and bring them into a world that they can't live in the world that they respectfully don't belong in? He doesn't belong in the ring with Canelo Alvarez. You're not going to get the same treatment from Canelo that you've gotten from Woodley and that you might possibly get from Mike. You won't get that treatment from Canelo. Canelo's going to say 10-ounce gloves. Canelo's going to say 3-minute rounds. Canelo's going to say, I don't care how much money it's for. Canelo's going to fight for the pride of boxing, and he's not going to go through with just anything for the sake of money. I can't imagine Canelo would. So I don't think we ever see him in the ring, Canelo and Jake Paul. I don't think we ever see that.
Maybe Jake's going to have to fight Benavidez because I don't know if we're going to see that fight either. Sean, two quick ones on the way out here. I just wanted to bring up one thing about Serrano. She's got the all of boxing record with 9 titles in 7 weight classes. And we all just, I guess, always talk about that as like an afterthought, as if that's normal. She's the reigning unified featherweight champion, which means she's moving back up 14 pounds for this fight, a couple weight divisions. She's in her late 30s. How hard is what she's done over her career? I think at one point she took a fight at 118, then went to 140 for her next, then came back down to 126.
Wow.
We don't give her enough credit for that. How freaking hard is that?
She's amazing. I know that Clarissa Shield calls herself the GOAT. I love Clarissa, and I feel like as long as we've been on this interview, I've tried to. I feel like I'm throwing shade for the sake of words, but I just feel like I'm speaking from an honest and truthful perspective. Amanda Serrano is the GOAT of boxing. Christy Martin and all these other names, Layla Ali, all of these other names that they don't hold a candle to what Amanda Serrano has done to the sport, for women. I don't know if we'll get another Amanda Serrano. Of course, Clarissa is the next best thing in terms of even the accolades and things of that nature. But to your question, it's hard. It's probably harder to lose the weight now than it is to fit into a weight class now. So she does have that working for her. But again, when we talk about being in prime, you're a little ways away from where your prime was, especially when you talk about age and things of that nature. But when we talk specifically to the weight, you're not moving the way that you used to because of that weight difference and also that age difference as well. So I appreciate her for getting back in the ring. I know that this is what she wanted. I think that she's still going to want to do one more in Puerto Rico. I feel like I've been retiring her on the Porterweight podcast for about 2 years now. I don't mean to do that, but for a talent like her, she's not going to end up like a Roy Jones where she's fought too long and she gets hurt. That's not going to happen to her. But at the same time, I think it's best that we see you go when you're great. Why do any more? There's nothing else that she needs to do. I think that this fight is probably the pinnacle of what she could do in this sport. And for me, she will always be the GOAT. I love that woman, Amanda Serrano, man, top to bottom.
Incredible. Great matchup. Can't wait. Quick question on the way out, and we thank you for your time.
About the Porterweight podcast? Sure, anything.
I'm sure you're interested in this because you've got one of the best podcasts in the game, the Porterweight podcast, and I think you're one of the best broadcasters in this game, and you do work for multiple networks. I've heard 2025 for boxing kind of being called a make or break year. Turki Al-Sheikh just bought Ring Magazine. Will that make one champion in each division? Who knows? Top Rank's going to be looking for a new deal. PBC really needs a big bounce back year. Maybe Dana White and the UFC get into boxing. What the heck's 2025 going to look like?
I don't know. I think that I don't know. I don't know. This is what I do know. There's enough substance. There's enough greatness in the sport to keep it moving the way that it has been. It's honestly just up to the business. I think the business is what's going to determine the future of boxing. I mean, obviously it has always done that. For 2025, if the business makes some fights that we've expected and wanted for some time, Shakur Stevenson, Tank Davis, you know, those kind of fights need to happen in 2025. If that one specifically doesn't happen, I think that there's still enough great fights to be made for this sport to continue on. Listen to me, and I'm sorry, but I'll end it with this. We got David Benavidez and David Morrell. I'm pretty sure they're fighting like in January, February.
February 1st is the rumor, yes.
That fight, the same type of time and energy and focus we're putting on Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. Boxing's got to figure out a way to get the world to put that kind of energy into a fight like that.
Yep.
Maybe Turkey does that, maybe not. I don't know. We'll find out, but I know you're going to be a big part of it. Sean, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate you. And thank you for allowing us to dunk on your hat. I love those hats. You look.
You know what? I have the same hat.
I ordered. Oh, you do already? Because I ordered some on Amazon for you guys. They're like,
yes.
I'm sending them to DraftKings. DraftKings gonna get it to you guys.
Yes, I'll wear it. We will wear it.
Sean, you look like you're an
double
actor,
XL
right?
hats, right?
Say again.
Double XL for your hat.
I mean, I got a
we
giant
got
noggin.
big melons. Yeah.
So I was looking at you guys. I was like, yo, that's a double XL. That's definitely a triple.
Big melons. Yes. Sean, thank you so much, man. Great to see you.
Talk to you guys later.
Thanks, bud.
Shawn Porter on behalf of DraftKings. I don't know if I like anyone better than him in boxing, Luke.
Sean's great. He's got a great podcast, Porter Way podcast. By the way, he's got a good cast of characters on the show. Sean Zattel's another guy I like a lot.
Yes.
Who's on that show, who's got great stuff to say. He's not the only one. Like, it's a really, if you just like good boxing conversation, Porter Way podcast.
All right, Luke, let's wrap the UFC. I didn't believe there were any other matchups on that card that were moving you, but if there are, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Forever hold your peace. Give me 1 second. Let me pull up my notes here. Good to see Mauricio Hufi. They had to move that fight to like a 160 plus catch weight because Longtop couldn't make weight, but it got done. That's going to be fun.
Didn't one of the guys lose weight or not make weight on the second time?
Longtop. Longtop fucked that up, right? Nocita?
Yeah, Longtop missed the catch weight that they agreed on, 165. He weighed in 166 point something.
Very quietly, Jim Miller's on this card against Damon Jackson, which is kind of fun as well. And then there's some other ones. Basil Hafez I like a lot. Mickey Gall is back very quietly. Almost no talk about Mickey Gall whatsoever. So there's a couple of interesting little nuggets here and there, but main co-mains for all the attention.
All right, topic 4 quickly here, Luke. UFC did change the gloves. And we thought it may have been Jon Jones related, but then Dana White at the press conference yesterday saying he made the choice from the idea that the new gloves just weren't making people happy, weren't making people comfortable, and maybe weren't fixing the issues that were originally thought. We do have audio here of Jon Jones giving his side of the story about it, but moving forward full time, you're going to see the old black UFC gloves. Let's listen in.
I'm really excited about the old gloves. I got sent a pair of the new gloves several weeks ago. I tried them on and I thought they were tight. I used to fit an XL, and then the new glove I had to put on a 3XL. The shape, curving your hands like that, they were very uncomfortable for me, and I was actually really stressed thinking about how am I going to go into fight week wearing these gloves that I don't even want to train in. So when I got a phone call recently, Hunter said, everyone on this card are veterans. Why put a bunch of vets in a new glove? Let's give you guys all what you're used to. It was a major relief to my coach, Brandon, who wraps my hands. It was a major relief to me as well.
Luke, if everyone's in on it and Dana has said, look, we tried something new and it didn't work out, then I guess this seems like the right move short of actually fixing the problem, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know what to say. This is a weird one. So people have like kind of conspiratorially tied it to Jon Jones. I mean, I guess you can if you want. I don't know if the evidence really bears that out. I think the bigger issue is is there data that shows, with the exception of like women's bantamweight, that across the board knockouts are down? Yes. The guy called Nate Latshaw, who's been following this, yes, they are down across the board, in certain cases by double digits. Most of them are high singles, 8-9%, but yes, they are all down across the board. But what he kind of cautioned was like, okay, so far the data doesn't look good, but he had believed that there was a couple of problems, not least of which was the sample size by which we were measuring this was simply too small. We just didn't really know for sure. Now that doesn't mean that there's it's not true. It could very well be the case that yes, the gloves affect knockouts, and you always have to understand there's like a certain delicate balance that makes the product work. And if you kind of mess with the formula, Coca-Cola just doesn't taste the same. And so I understand that they had some concerns, and again, some preliminary evidence that there were problems, just not definitive evidence. BC, this is the thing that I just can't wrap my head around. We've had all these conversations over the years about things like, for example, open scoring or, any kind of rule change. And what I've said is the UFC has all of these different franchises, not least of which is Contender Series, or, they have events in places where they have to self-regulate, where they could experiment with stuff. My thought is, why did they have such a big rollout, right? of all of this stuff where now we're going to have different gloves. They're going to get rid of all the different colorings. They're not even going to have different colored gloves, like red for Road to UFC and then blue for Contender Series and then whatever. Though they had Stipe and John take pictures with the gold gloves, so I don't know if they're going to have gold gloves that are old ones for Saturday, but they're going to get rid of
gold gloves, dude. It looks like they're Power Rangers out there. Like, just be basic on that, please.
Okay, but like they get like all that stuff that they put all that effort in, they just scrapped, and they got a new manufacturer for this. That they could have gone to like other tried and true manufacturers in the fight game, like Everlast and Reyes, and they just didn't. And I just don't understand the organization that is. Let's give the UFC credit where they deserve it. They're pretty buttoned up in most things, and they had a nice big rollout, and they tried to do something good. I'm like, you got to test this stuff, and you guys have all of the inventory and places to do it. Why didn't you test it enough?
Test it on the Dana White Contender Series. I do. One of the reasons why I don't know if excited that they're going back to it, but I support it, is it does seem to bring up more finishes, but less abrasions on the face. People were getting effed up by these gloves, if you really notice. It seemed to be more cuts, more scratches, more eye work. And I talked to Chris Weidman yesterday about that. And he said, look, the old gloves suck, but the new gloves suck worse. And he basically said the problem is, your hand is not naturally curved. So naturally, there's going to be situations where you have to extend your hand. And that's why it happens. Easy for him to say he stuck 4 fingers and every other orifice and limb into the orifice of Bruno Silva last time. But Luke, Weidman basically said, we all use training gloves that are perfect, have the natural curve. He mentioned they were the Trevor Whitman brand ones, and he didn't understand why UFC wouldn't sign with him. Didn't I watch some video where maybe Whitman stole that idea from somebody who was upset? I don't know.
Somebody accused him of that. I don't know how credible the accusations are. I did see that as an accusation.
Weidman's an active fighter who's like, those are the gloves we all practice with because they're the best to prevent this. So it seems like we still have a major issue with the fingers at least, but maybe it solves the other categories.
I'll just say, I hope the UFC continues to look into getting better gloves, because it doesn't feel like the old gloves are the best gloves that are available to the point that you raise. I just hope that whenever they get to that place, just put in the proper due diligence so that they don't have to backtrack like this.
All right, let's go back to topic 5 to close it out, Luke. And it's our expectations of what happens in this Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul fight this evening on Netflix. Mike Tyson is a plus 160 underdog, which blows me away. Minus 200 for Jake Paul. Luke, is that line only about inducing nostalgic betting from Tyson? Is that only what it's about?
The line has been affected by the betting at this point. BC, I mean, I don't, it sounds like your experience matches mine to the T, which is everyone I know in the fight game is like, oh yeah, Jake Paul's going to splatter him. And then everyone outside of the fight game is like, oh yeah, Mike Tyson's going to splatter him. And my understanding is, I think Long Island Luke, I think you have seen this as well. Maybe I'm told that there's like shit tons of betting on this fight. And I'm guessing
the most bet fight in history.
Yeah. I'm guessing that it's pushed that line. Is that a fair assessment, Long Island Luke?
100%. But I will say, the fight is not available on sportsbooks in the state of New York, so I cannot bet on the main event.
There's like 4 or 5 states that have it was in Mike Carpenter's ESPN story. They have outright said, we're not sure, it's not going to be like a weird scripted affair. We want nothing to do with the 14-ounce gloves. That was the response from the different states.
Yeah, it's crazy because I can bet on every single fight on that card except the main event. So
wow,
kind of
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. But to that point, and again, there's still unknowns. And don't get me wrong, I would freaking love it if Mike fucking completely splattered him. But I don't know how to assess the betting line other than at this point, it's just been heavily affected by the betting. I think it's probably wise to assume that Jake is your favorite, prohibitive or otherwise. He is the king of sandbagging, and they're fighting at the end of the day. We all know it. He's fighting a 58-year-old fucking guy. Like
show the pics, Luke Nocita of Tyson on the scale. It is still a 58-year-old man, but holy shit, Luke.
Yeah, I mean,
Lord.
for 58, he looks awesome. Like you can certainly declare that, right? He looks amazing for 58. But, I keep saying this, like people are like, why is this fight in Texas? Like, is that where Mike is from? And I'm like, no, he's from fucking Brownsville, Brooklyn. Like, of course
Vegas.
he's not.
Yeah.
Why is it not in Vegas? Because, dude, I don't know if you could get this fight sanctioned in any place other than Texas or Florida. and I'm not even sure you could get it in Florida.
Tai Chi Palace would be all freaking over this. And
Dude, the UFC is going to go back there any day.
They owe them something. Yes, huge for that. So we saw that. We saw the slap. Let's see the angry face-off here after the presser. Luke, what do you make of Mike Tyson's demeanor since this press conference and him just dunking on all the questions and not listening to Ariel? Was it game time mode? Is he trying to get in the head of Paul?
I think he's trying to win. I don't know if he's exactly trying to play too many fuck games. You know, slapping Paul is like the most perfect thing to do to get people to watch. I mean, holy shit. Like that was, I mean, Jake has to be thanking his lucky stars that Mike did something like that. Not that it was going poorly or something, but that just sent it into overdrive about how many people are going to watch this. I don't know if Mike is playing games. I don't really know. I mean, again, the guy is closer to collecting Social Security than he is, you know, to being even in his fucking 40s. I mean, it's just crazy how far along he is in this whole thing. So I think he'll try to win, but I think age is going to get him.
You didn't think he was scared at Thursday's press conference, right?
No.
Like, he definitely didn't want to be there. We got one soundbite we can throw to. It was basically this response to every question.
Dying, and what could you lose if you lose this fight? Thank you.
I'm not going to lose.
But just you say that in the last minute of the second.
I am not going to lose. Did you hear what I said?
Thank you.
I know people are receiving that as if he's like fighting for age and oldness. He's really just basically saying, I don't do interviews with women usually unless I fornicate with them. Like, that's the old angry, if you don't like it, turn off your station, Mike, coming back out, right? It was great.
I mean, here's what I'll say. When he's like, can we see the slap one more time, Long Island Luke? Can we see that? I mean, I'll tell you what, BC, if Power Slap was just people taking turns slapping the fuck out of Jake Paul, I'd watch every episode.
Yeah.
I
mean, why is Mike wearing a G-string too? What's going on here? Maybe because he looks great. You know, maybe
you know what? My man is 58. He's like, it's time for the thunder from down under.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Wow. So plus 160, Mike Tyson. Luke, I thought Shawn Porter gave us really sober, honest analysis. We all want to look at Mike's shape. We want to look at that slap. We want to talk about Jake's inexperience. All this stuff could all be true. Dude, he's 58. Even with 2-minute rounds, Jake's going to be leaning on him. Jake's going to be jabbing him hard. I mean, does Jake need to just not look to score in the first round and just get past the 2 minutes of fury that you expect Tyson to give him?
Again, I think, if you go back and you watch the Roy Jones exhibition fight for a 54-year-old in that contest, Mike looked pretty good, but Jake is bigger. He's going to be sturdier. And BC, this is the thing I think is really going to matter. Even if Mike comes out like a bat out of hell, it's a 2-minute round. It's easier to survive if you get rocked. And I think he's going to hold. I think it's actually going to be a fair amount of holding, like gripping, leaning on him, that kind of a thing. I haven't heard how big the ring is, because that can obviously differ event to event as well. But I just feel like he's going to slow Mike down to the point where Mike is much more predictable, much more easy to time. And then he's just going to get splattered. I hope the opposite happens. Please believe me. I just, all things being what they are.
Mike's going to get splattered as much as he's just going to be exhausted into a stoppage loss in the first half of the fight, despite probably having some crazy moments of big punches, because Luke, they're not going to let him take a beating. They got to realize how tenuous this situation is. I don't necessarily know if he's going to get wobbled around like Holyfield, without even really landing a big punch. Belfort just touched him and Holyfield was wobbling around. I don't think it looks like that, but as soon as he's in trouble, they're not going to let it go, right? You're not going to see him get knocked down 3 times and get back up. No.
Oh yeah. So like you get to your point about Holyfield and Belfort. I mean, that one was a little bit different because he genuinely looked infirm. Holyfield, like if he didn't have a walker, he would have lost his balance going up the stairs. I mean, that was really bad. Mike appears to be in better condition than that, but I agree with you. It's not going to be one of those things where Castillo Corrales, where there's like multiple times rallying off the fucking canvas. No, he gets rocked maybe once, but certainly even twice they're going to call it. Yeah.
Well, El Gallo de Dorado put a cock on his head, Luke, and we have footage of it as he talks about his want for Canelio.
It's going to be a short night for Mike. It's not about how long you've been doing something. It's about how good you do it. On Friday night, people are going to see me outbox the person who's been doing it their whole life.
Would Canelo be the next fight, finally? Would that happen?
If he's not a fucking puta.
There's the answer.
Jake Joseph Paul will knock out Mike Tyson Friday, November 15th. It is written in the fucking history books.
Okay, got me with that puta line. Here's the thing. Jake's largely cringe. Him yelling at Ariel after the slap and all that shit was weird. So was him trying to talk down the boxers on the undercard over that, the bets he was trying to make with them. It was all weird. But then he'll deliver a killer line out of nowhere like that. And I'm like, yeah, let's see.
You thought that line was killer?
I thought he delivered it well, Luke. Okay. I'm
Long
white
on,
trash
Luke.
also.
Long on, Luke.
Yeah.
Settle the score here. I thought that was lame as shit the whole way through. Where do you come down?
I'm gonna kind of agree with Luke here. I thought it was kind of
All right, he slipped one past my 5-hole. Sorry, but the whole I'm gonna fuck him up, Ariel. I mean, dude, what'd you make of Ariel announcing Mike Tyson and like he was Vince McMahon, announcing the XFL? It was aggressive,
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I'll tell you this much: if Netflix paid me to give a cringy ass fucking announcement for Mike Tyson, I'd do the same. I'll tell you that much.
All right, Luke, 4th round stoppage. How about that? Jake Paul, halfway
Yeah.
right before the halfway point, 4th round.
Yeah,
stoppage.
I think that's a good solid bet. I don't think it goes much longer than that. Yeah.
Do you think he tries to go full heel and clown Mike afterwards, or is it going to be all love?
No, he's definitely going to show love afterwards, but he'll be shitty to Canelo, or he's definitely, remember all the boxers that picked Mike, which I don't quite get because most boxers I've talked to privately all think Mike's going to get splattered too.
Yes.
We just had Shawn Porter. He said this, he didn't say that, but like he's going to lose. But then like Shushu Carrington and all these people were like betting Mike, and then Jake got bitter. He's definitely going to be shitty to them for sure. For sure.
All right. Well, Luke, that co-main event that is absolutely fantastic. This time for Taylor's undisputed 140-pound title. The odds shifted in the last 48 hours. Your favorite is Amanda Serrano now at minus 120 against the plus 100 Taylor. There's the face-off from Thursday's press conference. Luke, Serrano was the bigger puncher in the first fight, even though she was coming up in weight. She hurt Katie in that round 5 that you wonder if there were 3-minute rounds and not 2, if Taylor might not make it out of that round. I thought Serrano won the first fight, but to be fair, 6-4 either way wasn't criminal. The odds makers like Serrano in this second fight. We have seen some decline out of Katie Taylor, although coming back to beat Chantel Cameron in the rematch showed every bit of heart that she brings. Who wins this rematch and why?
I'm going to guess Serrano, but she's getting older as well. Obviously, she's not quite a spring chicken either, but I'm with you. I thought Serrano did enough the first time to win. But again, Katie Taylor fought her fucking ass off in that contest. So you can't be mad about it. It's fine. I totally accept the results as legitimate. I just feel like Katie Taylor's like kind of up against it. This rematch probably should have happened a little bit sooner, but it's going to be amazing for as long as it lasts. So give me Serrano by a hair, but I think she gets it done.
Yeah, I think she's going to land the bigger punches, big power punches early, like she's saying. I think Katie Taylor, for as amazing as she is, yes, she's also really tried to benefit from the 10-round, 2-minute round format. That's why both fights, Katie Taylor refused the change to the 12 rounds and the 3-minute round. So I wonder if this produces a trilogy. Serrano seems to already be talking about that. We'd all be down for it. Luke, what do you think about the purses? The reports online are that Taylor's going to get $6.1 million, which would be the largest purse in female fighting history, and that Serrano, when you add in the money she's going to be made as a promoter and some of the TV deal money that she'll get, could be as close to 10 million even.
I think that's amazing. Again, Jake Paul's got a lot of things about him that I don't care too much for, but he put Serrano on the map in a way that nobody else had. I really appreciate that. Katie Taylor has earned a payday like this and then some. Good for those ladies. I hope that they can use that money and for great things in their life. They've earned it.
I hope they get great things in their life too. Let's close, Luke, with our chance to give the people an opportunity to call us out. I'm told we don't have fan subs this week, but morningkombat@gmail.com is where you can drop in fan subs. Or if you got issue with something we said, then say it to our face on Dead Wrong. No Dead Wrong intro. All right.
We don't have any imaging anymore.
Long Island, do we have any Dead Wrong opportunities?
No, we haven't had it. I thought that was known. Sorry. I should have mentioned.
Oh, we don't have Dead Wrong either, you're saying.
Oh, no. Oh, sorry. We do have Dead Wrong. We have one.
We have
It's
one,
on the
right?
rundown.
Oh, I got it right
Yeah,
in front of me. Here we go. I'll read it. Okay. This one is from Daz, who says mahalo at 20 minutes and 40 seconds on Monday's episode. BC references the RDR versus Malakin fight, saying that we have seen RDR get crushed before moving up and fighting Malakin. BC, RDR never went up to fight Malakin. Malakin came down to fight him twice, taking Rainier's light heavyweight and middleweight titles after becoming the one interim heavyweight champ. Between the MK channel and the individual channels, always appreciative of the content, says Daz mahalo. Luke, where would you rank Daz in your current ranking of favorite Hawaiians, keeping in mind that Telvin Kipapa has money in the bank with us? Okay.
Well, the good news is that he's back up on that ass and he gives these motherfuckers a blast from the past. That's what I really like about him.
Okay. Thank you, Daz. Thank you for not ranking any Hawaiians, including Governor Penn or Moana. Yeah. What do you got over there?
I wanted to say that Daz is like the unofficial king of the dead wrongs. He lives for pointing out the dead wrongs and sending them in. He
Good.
Hey,
we deserve that. And it's an important part of the show. Also, BC, you mentioned Moana. Moana 2 comes out later this month. The Tookster is chomping at the bit.
But tell her Dwayne the Rock Johnson sucks now. Okay. Tell her that.
Yeah,
it's hard to Black Adam in the theater. I can attest to it.
One of the worst movies I've ever seen. But Moana, he was good in Moana. He was definitely good in Moana.
I do give him that. Yeah, I did see that with the kids. Yeah. All right. Well, Luke, I hope you enjoy yourself. I hope you have a great time tonight with Tyson Paul and the live experience.
Thanks, bro.
And we'll be back in Monday in Manhattan, right?
We will. Monday in Manhattan, going to be a big show recapping Tyson Paul, recapping UFC 309. Crazy week. I mean, here's the thing, BC. You might be getting sandbags in both main events. You might get Jake Paul sandbagging, and it could be just a quick night for Stipe and John getting his hand raised. But maybe something crazy fucking happens. I certainly hope.
Right. It might be too soon with all the hurricanes in our country to use the sandbag joke, Luke. I'm not really into that. A lot of good people are still trying to get back in their homes. All right. Okay. Okay. Luke, real quick. Mikey Musumeci signs an official contract with the UFC to grapple on their events. What do you think about that?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I've seen some other grapplers sort of comment, like, obviously Mikey's an amazing grappler, there's no question, but he doesn't exactly have the most like fan-friendly style because he's got a really intricate system. But the bigger story there is like it's an exclusive deal, as I understand it, and there's supposed to be more coming, and it's like, you got to give some credit to one for kind of, I mean, UFC's been doing Fight Pass Invitational, so they credit to them as well. I want to be very clear, but like, A, blowing up Mikey's profile, and B, like kind of integrating them into their events and making it a big thing that folks could get behind. And now the UFC wants to do that and make it more. I'm curious to see what UFC is going to do here. I really want to see what's going to happen.
Me too. And I'm also going to be curious to see today if the UFC gives us the boom and announces Shavkat versus Ian Gary for 310, or if we get the doom of Usman again. Luke.
Or how about this one? How about Shavkat versus? Would you take Shavkat versus Colby?
No. That's so no.
Dude, Shavkat beating the shit out of Colby Covington. You wouldn't take that?
I don't want Colby's done. I mean, I know Trump's back in the White House, but Colby to me is like I'm done. You want to fight an old guy? Sure.
Listen, Colby's either going to fight Shavkat or he's just going to be the head of health HHS. You know what I mean? So
I do. There you go. I hope it's Ian Gary. We're going to find out today, but I'm about to pee my pants. So for Luke Thomas, you can wear this merch. Look how good this shirt looks on me. Go to morningkombat.store right now. I don't even know who's behind the cash register, but you can probably get 10% off using Live 10. We got great merch, and I will have an answer if we still sell it next week. Hopefully, we got a big meeting coming up. I'm really
you can follow and subscribe, all the good stuff there. The channels, the Brian Campbell Experience, Luke Thomas there, and Morning Kombat everywhere as well. Like and subscribe, follow, and have a good time.
Take care of yourselves, people. We love you. Long Island Luke, you got anything else to say? Probably not, right? One thing, maybe.
Join me tonight. Watch along 8 p.m. in the East. See you then.
Take your clothes off. Hang out with Luke Nocita. It's a good life. Thank you so much. We are out of here.